I think there's a way for you to solve it. I just want you to, I think you can solve it by simply deferring consideration of this item until the next city council meeting. I think you gave valid notice on the 14th. 12 days from then is the 26th. And that means that your next meeting, which I think you've got scheduled for the Thursday, the 27th, I think you can consider it at that time. So I think that somebody should make a motion to postpone consideration of the item until proper notice has been given out. So basically the 27th of this month. So that's my issue. I think that this could be legally challenged. If you don't do that, I'd rather that you just do it the correct way and not the unlawful way. And that's all I have to say today. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, our next is Carla Alejandra, not available. Okay, our next speaker is Ray Platel.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, council members, city staff. Often residents just come to you with complaints or problems, myself being one of them. However, with tonight's issue, I also offer a solution to you. The new fiscal year is right around the corner, and then comes the neighborhood wars. I'm referring to the annual use of illegal fireworks throughout the city. It has started already and will progressively get worse as we approach the 4th. Illegal fireworks are both a serious nuisance and an absolute safety issue. You know this already. I've read about the crime reduction unit and the neighborhood policing team, along with the fire department and code compliance with their drones. This is equivalent to using a six-pack of beer to battle a forest fire. These are ineffective, just as writing an article in the Tri-County, such as this one, does nothing. If you really wanted to finally put a stop to this fireworks nonsense, you'd flood the city with patrol officers on the 4th, using both marked and unmarked cars. The OPD has over 200 officers which could be activated to quell the illegal activity. That is, if the city is serious about enforcement. And when there's a will, there's a way. This is just about one officer per populated square mile within a city, and it's certainly doable. Is it possible? Absolutely. Overtime is apparently not an issue, as OPD personnel have typically doubled their salary in overtime every year anyway. For example, in 2022, OPD base salary was $24.6 million and overtime was $47.2 million, nearly double. 2023 data is not available yet, or I'd give you that too. And yes, some is paid by grant funds, but the vast majority is paid by taxpayers. Consider this, 200 actively deployed officers and each easily writing one citation for $1,000, like shooting fish in a barrel or ducks on a pond. That's $200,000 right there. And some would have no problem writing 2 or even 3 on the 4th. That's enough to pay salaries and even most of the overtime. Not that the purpose of this is to make money or to hassle the residents, but to enforce your ordinance and keep the peace. My wife has a co-worker who claims that neighbor who they'd rather pay the $1,000 than give up their fireworks. I think you should take them to their word. Enough of this warning stuff. Get serious. That's your job. Please do something this year. Last year was horrendous, even past midnight. No more talk, no more warnings. You've warned enough. Let's see some action. There are sufficient sanctioned fireworks throughout the county for those folks to get their bang boom kicks. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Our next speaker is John Barrick.
Good evening. My name is John Barrick, and I'm one of the board members for the Ventura County Taxpayers Association. I was also raised in Oxnard, and I'm a resident. The mission for the VCTA has always been simple. We inform taxpayers, promote the wise use of public funds, oppose waste, and advise public officials regarding issues of concern to taxpayers, and recommend positions that will best serve the taxpayers' interests. It's a role we have been serving for 70 years. So it is with this mission in mind that the VCTA asks Oxnard city officials this question. Why have you all decided to pay street sweepers almost $200,000 a year in salary? To put this in perspective, This is considerably more than you pay police officers, firefighters, paramedics, nurses, teachers, and most of your city attorneys, to name a few. In September 2023, this City Council quietly and unanimously approved that beginning on July 1st of this year, street sweepers in the City of Oxnard would be paid the hourly wage of $95.25 per hour. VCTA can find no justification for this salary. Every other city in this county contracts out their street sweeping obligations to private companies. This is done to cut costs. As a result, the industry range for street sweepers in other cities is approximately $21 to $28 per hour. Oxnard is the only city that apparently conducts its own street sweeping. However, if the hourly wage Oxnard pays its street sweepers is going to be $60 to $70 more per hour than every other city in this county, shouldn't our elected leaders be spearheading an effort to dramatically reduce that cost? And remember, the $95.25 per hour that Oxnard is going to be paying its street sweepers only covers salary. The dollar amount does not consider health care and pension costs for each employee, which could raise the yearly salary for each employee to approximately $250,000 per year. According to the Second Amendment to Trade Services Agreement A-8230 from September, the substantial salary increase was due to the state legislature's passing of 2022's Assembly Bill 1886 Cooper, which stated that the prevailing rate of per diem wages be paid to workers employed on public works projects. Assembly Bill 1886 was even referenced in the city's agreement as a mandate. So VCTA investigated this and discovered two problems. First, AB 1886 Cooper died in the state Senate on August 31st, 2022, after the Assembly refused to concur with the Senate amendments. It was never signed into law. Second, if it had been signed into law, why isn't every other city in this county paying that prevailing wage? The VTCA will expect this council to draft a statement to explain why Oxnard street sweepers are being paid approximately 339% more than street sweepers in every other city in this county. I think your vote is demanded. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam Clerk, any other speakers on items not on the agenda?
Mayor, we do not have any additional speakers for this item.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Mayor
just a
Pro Tem.
quick comment. I know we don't usually engage in discussion, but I'd like maybe Mr. Wolf to explain the contract and the cost of the contract on an hourly basis, if he has the numbers with him. If not, he can
Yes,
do
well,
it at
this
a
is-
later time.
Of course, this item's not on the agenda. Is that Mr. City Attorney?
No, not to us, too.
It can be brought back
To
on
them.
the 27th. There can be a brief response right now, but generally, you're limited
No, I'm
to
not-
directing something to be brought back, or if there's
We brought back
I'm not
very
asking
brief
for a response to council. I'm asking for him to contact the speaker.
for our staff to, okay, good
Oh,
point.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then we continue then to item D1. This is Public Works continuation of emergency order for replacement of the city data center cooling system. Recommendation that the City Council review and approve the continuation of the city manager's emergency order to dispense with public bidding requirements pursuant to Public Code Section 22050 for replacement of the data cooling center. And this item did not originate in committee. And so we do have Mr. Michael, our Public Works Director, for any questions the council might have. Council members, any questions on Michael on this item? Gabe, go ahead, Councilman Tehran.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick administrative thing. I believe in the information I have around Assembly Bill 2449 for teleconferencing, I need to make a statement to publicly disclose why I'm remotely joining today
Go ahead and share.
before we take any action. So thank you. So I just wanted to disclose that I am not feeling well. I have got a cold, and out of the interest of the health of my colleagues and the public, I've chosen to use Just Cause rules to participate in tonight's meeting. There are no 18-year-old adults in the room with me. And I believe that's my obligation unless the city attorney thinks I missed anything.
Thank you so much, Council Member. So
Excuse me, Mayor Zaragoza.
Yes, ma'am.
Also, for the record, I'd like to announce that Councilmember Basua has joined the meeting as of 6:02 p.m. Also, we have Housing Commissioner Jose Andrade, and Housing Commissioner Francisco Vega, who will be absent today.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any additional questions, well, we didn't ask you a question. So what's the pleasure of the board?
I would move the recommended action.
Okay, we got a first by Mayor Pro Tem,
Second.
second by Valenzuela. Okay, so
You have to do a roll call.
roll call.
Councilmember Basua?
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Councilmember Perrello?
Yes.
Councilmember Tehran?
Yes.
Councilmember Valenzuela?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald?
Aye.
Mayor Zaragoza?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Our next item is item E. This is the City Council, members of the City Council that might have some brief information on their activities, and also if you want to schedule any items for future agendas. And council members, we have 3 minutes. And we'll start off with Councilman Tehran.
Thank you, Mayor. Just some quick updates. I was not able to attend as I was out of town for my full-time day job, but I do want to congratulate the River Park Neighborhood Council Executive Board, who were just elected at their most recent meeting, and as well as the Carriage Square Neighborhood Council, who coincidentally the same night we're also having an election meeting. I want to thank them for their willingness to engage their residents in their neighborhood and continue the work in having the neighborhood council function as a conduit between residents and the city. On the 29th of June, the Oxnard LGBTQ organization will be holding Oxnard Pride at Plaza Park. And it's an event that anybody is welcome to attend. And I just wanted to mention that for folks who may be interested. It is, I believe, their 4th annual time doing it. So know that that's June 29th at Plaza Park. And I know the Mayor Pro Tem already mentioned it. The direction can be made to have staff please reach out to the Ventura County Taxpayers Association. If it helps with their research, the staff reports and the 2 public meetings that came to actually laid out information that seemed to be in contrast with what was mentioned tonight. If that is the case, that prevailing wage and state statute requires that street sweeper operators who are contracted by the city, they're not city employees also, be paid at that wage, then if we find that that's the case, I hope that the Taxpayers Association will be going to the other cities they mentioned who are not in compliance with the law. And I'd be happy to provide contact info if you need that for the other cities if that turns out to be the case. Otherwise, thank you for coming tonight and making the comments, and I'm sure staff will follow up accordingly. All right, thank you very much for the time. That's my comments, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Madrigal.
No comments this time around.
Okay, Councilman Basua,
I've got no comments.
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilman Perrello.
Welcome the speakers that spoke tonight. I do support Mr. Tehran's issue. Having the issue about the contracts for the street sweepers at the Public Works Committee meeting, some of the questions that the gentleman at public comment asked, I believe were addressed at that meeting. I hope he watches it. I had the opportunity to attend the Juneteenth celebration, very nice event. And today at the Board of Supervisors, I had the opportunity to attend. The Board of Supervisors was asking specific questions about possibly changing or questioning how voting is done in the county. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Valenzuela.
Thank you, Mayor. On June 6th, I was able to attend a farm worker resource meeting held at Cesar Chavez Elementary, and happy to hear that the county will be providing an office at the Oxnard outlets for our farm worker community. This past Saturday, I joined several of my peers at the Juneteenth event, but also joined some community members at South Winds Park, where I got to meet some of our young men in the Oxnard Football Club who will be traveling to Hawaii this upcoming weekend to play. So I look forward to streaming their game and rooting for them from home. And also, I'd like to echo some of the sentiments that Councilmember Tehran stated about June 29th will be Oxnard Pride, held here at the Oxnard Plaza Park from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I have a couple of items I'd like to report. Last Friday I had the opportunity to present the state of the city to the West Ventura County Business Alliance, and we had over 200 and some people that attended the gathering. And to hear, they heard some of Oxnard's positive balanced budgets that we have, and also the surplus that the city of Oxnard has, which is very, very significant, and it's improving. Those dollars are improving our streets, our businesses, as they grow here in Oxnard. So I also want to thank our Katie Casey, our communication manager, Martha Guillen and Luli Lopez, our executive assistants at the city manager's office, and of course Mr. Alex Newen and also our assistant city manager Golden, and all the other directors that were there, to help out with some of the answers we had, like Mr. Michael Wolf, our public works director, housing director Emilia Ramirez, Jeff Pangali, our director of community service, our chief of police was there, and also some of the firefighters that were there today. So we had a really excellent presentation. We have over 200 plus people that attended. And also on Saturday the 15th, I attended the Juneteenth Festival here at Plaza Park. It was just wonderful to see all the families enjoying the delicious food and music, and it was very well attended. We just couldn't have asked for better weather that day, and I want to thank also the Juneteenth committee. And additionally, Pat Brown just gave me a little flyer that says District 4 Town Hall Meeting. The guest speaker is going to be the city manager, Alex Newen, Monday, July 1, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. at the PAC. And you're invited, so she wanted to share that information for you. Thank you, Pat. Thank you so much for that. And that's all I have. So then we're going to go over to, do we have any speakers on this item?
We do not have any speakers, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item is the City Clerk Department. This subject's appointment of a member to serve at the City Parks, Recreation, and Community Service Commission. Recommendation that the mayor, with the approval of the City Council, appoint Joe Garcia to the Parks, Recreation, Community Service Commission, representing District Number 3. And this did not originate in committee. And we had a Measure M presentation on this item. And we do have the city clerk, if we have any questions on this item, or if not, Councilman Tehran.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Mr. Garcia for his willingness to serve as a commissioner and serve the community and be a liaison between our residents and anything having to do with the Parks, Recreation, Community Services. And as a former commissioner myself, I know there's a lot of work to do, and it's all good work. And we certainly appreciate, and I certainly respect people who are willing to volunteer their time to do this work. So thank you to Mr. Garcia. With that, I'll move the recommended action if there's no other discussion.
Okay, got first by Tehran.
I'll second it.
Second by Councilman Perrella. Roll call.
Mayor, I have a motion by Councilmember Tehran, a second by Councilmember Perrello.
Correct.
Councilmember Basua,
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal,
Aye.
Councilmember Perrello,
Yes.
Councilmember Tehran,
Yes.
Councilmember Valenzuela,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald,
Aye.
Mayor Zaragoza.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, and congratulations to Mr. Garcia. Volunteers are really important to the community. Thank you, Joe, if you're listening. Our next item, item F, this is a review of the information consent agenda item. And council members, we have 1 to 8 items. But before we go, do we have any speakers on this item?
We do not have any speakers on this item.
Council members, we have 1 to 8 items. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll move the recommended action.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have first by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Councilman
Mayor, I
Perrella.
have a discussion real quick.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if we can get some quick summary information regarding number 6 for the Ventura County Animal Services Agreement.
Okay, let me see. So item number 6 And that would be our police chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Speaking to this item is Commander Edgar Fernandez, who's our project manager on this.
Okay, Edgar.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, and City staff. I'm Commander Edgar Fernandez with the Oxnard Police Department. I'm here to answer questions and give you a brief summary of this particular
Councilman Turan's
with the Ventura County Animal Services.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you. Thank you, Commander. If you wouldn't mind just summarizing the item and the agreement we have here, just so that folks understand the structure of the City of Oxnard and VCAS and the relationship we have with them for this service.
Absolutely. We are currently entering the 5th year and final year of a 5-year agreement that we have with Ventura County Animal Services Agreement. I also have Phil Rarick here, that is also the interim director of the Ventura County Animal Services Agreement. He's here to answer questions if there's any that I can't answer this evening for you. But essentially, the agreement that we have entered into, that we're again in the 5th year of, basically states that the Ventura Animal Services Department assists the City of Oxnard with their required and their necessary animal services, such as housing animals that are strays or found in the street, animals that our animal services takes to them, and also any animal that's found within the city limits and a citizen takes or a resident takes to the shelter is then housed there as well. So they help us with that component, which is probably the largest component they help us with. The City of Oxnard itself does have its own animal safety officers, and they go out and they provide the services of picking up animals and trying to find their proper owners. If they're unable to find their proper owners, then we take them to the shelter in order to then advise the community that these animals are being been found and that we're trying to find their proper owner. If there's an injured animal as well, we take them to the shelter, and they also provide those types of services also. Coupled with the fact that the agreement states that we also work in conjunction with them on the licensing portion of the services that are necessary for people to own pets here in the city. So the licensing agreement is also a big component of this, where what happens is that we share the responsibility of licensing animals here, and then that cost is then taken from the overall cost of this agreement. And we reflect that at the end of the year. So those are some of the major components that this agreement takes into consideration. And it is a necessary thing that every city has to account for, is animal services.
And just to add to the question here too, we're the largest users also of the animal shelter, just for information.
Absolutely. Just like you would imagine, we are the largest city in the county, so we are the largest user in the county of animal services. So we do take in the largest amount of animals into the shelter. If you look at the weighted average over the last 3 years, we account for approximately 40% of the animals that are brought into the shelter. So it's a large undertaking, but it's been a very good partnership for us over the last several years.
Great. Thank you for that summary, Commander. It's much appreciated. I had a member of the public who had asked about this, and so I just wanted to take the opportunity to just state it on the record what we have in front of us and what the services would look like. And the last thing I'll share, I think I share this every time we bring up our animal safety team or our agreement with the shelter. I think a lot of people might go into this line of work, whether they're on the sheltering side or on the street side of things, because they really love animals, they love dogs, they love helping animals. And I feel that they probably realize that through this work, you also run into people who do not treat animals well, or people who do inhumane things to animals or have them in terrible living conditions. And there's certainly a component where you are helping animals, But I hope the general public knows that that's a factor that these folks who do this day in and day out on the animal safety side for Oxnard PD or on the side of the shelter there's an emotional toll that they have to deal with every day as well. So again, thank you, Commander, much appreciated.
Thank you as well, and I appreciate those comments because it is a difficult job, and I've seen it on their faces at times that it is taxing, especially when they come into those instances where animal cruelty has taken its toll on an animal, and that's something that our animal safety officers do contend with, but they do a very good job doing that.
Thank you, Councilmember. And Commander, thank you too, and your folks, as I know you attend most of the meetings over at the animal shelter.
Yes, sir.
Which is extremely important. You're there to avail yourself of any questions. Thank you so much for the good work.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Okay, so we have a motion from Councilor Perello, second by Mayor Pro Tem. Oh, turn around. Okay, first by Perello, second by Mayor Pro Tem. Okay, first by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Perello. Please vote.
Councilmember Basua.
I'm sorry, roll call, not vote.
Aye.
We'll get there.
Councilmember Madrigal.
Aye.
Councilmember Perello.
Yes.
Councilmember Turan.
Yes.
Councilmember Valenzuela.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
Aye.
Mayor Zaragoza.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
And
Thank you
just for
so
the
much.
record, Mayor, this consent agenda also included items for the Oxnard Housing Authority.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so our next item, this is I1. This is a time and place to set for a public hearing. Item 1-1, subject fiscal year 24-25, resolution to levy assessments in the Waterway Maintenance District. Recommendation is the City Council acting as a legislative body of the Waterway Maintenance District. 1, hold a public hearing regarding the proposed assessments for the Waterway Maintenance District for fiscal year 24-25, and to adopt a resolution to levy the special assessment on the property within the Waterway Maintenance District for fiscal year 24-25. And we start off with the City Clerk's certification of publication and any written communications, if any. Madam Clerk?
Mayor Zaragoza, there was a legal notice for this public hearing published in the Vida newspaper on June 6, 2024. The City Clerk's office has not received any written communications on this item.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do any council members have any ex parte communications or other disclosures regarding this matter to state for the record? Members summarize ex parte contacts, if any, disclosure. We'll start off with Valenzuela.
None.
Perello.
None.
Mayor Pro Tem.
None.
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 Okay,
None,
thank
Mayor.
you. Turan? None, okay. Okay, so members of the public were invited to sign up to speak on this item on the city website or in person. Those people that did not sign up by submitting a speaker card can now do so by going to the city website, oxnard.org, city meetings. The interim special district manager, Anthony Miller, posted a video presentation regarding this item, and staff are available to answer any questions or any clarifying questions the council member may have at this time. Well, so council will deliberate after the public hearing has been closed. Do any council members have any questions at this time? None? If not, then I'll open the public hearing, testimony portion of this item. Speakers have 3 minutes to speak on this item. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers on this item?
Mayor Zaragoza, we do not have any public speakers for this public hearing.
Thank you. If there was no additional speakers, I'm closing the public hearing. Council members, do we have any comments at this time? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move the recommended action.
Second.
We got a first by Valenzuela, second by Perello. Roll call.
Councilmember Basua.
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal.
Aye.
Councilmember Perello.
Yes.
Councilmember Turan.
Yes.
Councilmember Valenzuela.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
Aye.
Mayor Zaragoza.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Our next item, this is a time and place for a public hearing on item I-2, subject adoption and resolution confirming the fiscal year 24-25 landscape maintenance district diagrams and assessments. The recommendation is that the City Council, acting as a legislative body for the City Landscape Maintenance District, LMDs, one, hold a public hearing to receive public testimony regarding the proposed fiscal year 24-25 and the assessments in the city's LMDs, and two, adopt a resolution confirming diagrams and assessments for fiscal year 24-25 in connection with the city's LMDs. We start off with the city clerk certification and publications and any written communications committee. Madam Clerk.
Mayor Zaragoza, there was a legal notice for this public hearing published in the Vida newspaper on June 6, 2024. The city clerk's office has not received any written communications on this item.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Council members, is there any ex parte communications or other disclosure regarding this matter to state for the record? Members, summarize any ex parte contacts, if any, disclosures. Council member?
None, but I want to inform the council that if there's a discussion about Landscape District 13, I need to recuse myself as I live there.
I'll be getting there, too. Thank you.
None.
And also I'm going to disclose it further on. None? Okay. Thank you. So the members of the public are invited to sign up to speak on this item on the city website, and any person that did not sign up at this time, but they can submit a card, or did not submit a card, they can do so now by going to the city website, oxnard.org, city meetings. The interim special district manager, Anthony Miller, posted a video presentation regarding this item, and staff are available to answer any brief questions or clarifying questions that council members may have at this time. The council will also deliberate after the public hearing has been closed. Do any council members have any questions at this time? If not, then I'm going to open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers on this item? The speakers have 3 minutes to speak on this item, if any.
Mayor Zaragoza, we do not have any public speakers for this public hearing.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing. And I'm going to entertain a motion, but I would like to share that is going to recuse myself from L3. And
I'm going to recuse myself from L13.
And okay, so we need a first and a second on this item. Okay, first by Basua,
Second.
second by Valenzuela. Please vote, and again, I'm going to recuse from that particular item. Roll call.
Councilmember Basua?
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Councilmember Perillo?
Yes, but recusing from anything to do with Landscape District number 13.
Councilmember Turan?
Yes.
Councilmember Valenzuela?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald?
Aye.
Mayor Zaragoza?
I am going to recuse myself because I own some property in that LM3. And yes.
Thank you. Motion carries with 5 yeses, 0 noes, and 2 recusals. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, our next item is, let me see, is J1. This is the Finance Department Public Safety Property Tax Assessment, fiscal year 24-25. Recommendation of City Council to adopt a resolution establishing fiscal year 24-25 tax rates on the properties in the City Council, in the City of Oxnard, for the payment of voter-approved obligations related to public safety personnel pension expenses. The Finance Governance Committee voted 3-0 May 14 to approve this item, or to recommend this item to the City Council. And there was a Measure M pre-recorded item, and we do have our Finance Director, Javier, if we have any questions. Any questions on this item, council members? If not, any motion on this item? Any speakers on this item?
Mayor Zaragoza, we do not have any speakers on this item.
Okay, thank
I'll move the
you.
recommended action.
Moved by Councilman Perrello, second by Councilman Basua. Please vote. Oh,
Councilmember,
roll call.
Councilmember Basua?
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Councilmember Perrello?
Yes.
Councilmember Turan?
Yes.
Councilmember Valenzuela?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald?
Aye.
Mayor Zaragoza?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Our next item is item number 2, Public Works, fiscal year 24-25, Special District, Community Facilities District, CFDs, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, and 2003. Recommendation of the City Council acting as a legislative body for the Community Facilities District, CFD 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, and 2003. 1, adopt a resolution setting special district rates with CFD number 1, Westport and Mandalay fiscal year 2024-25. 2, adopt a resolution setting special district rate within CFD number 2, Westport Mandalay Bay for fiscal year 24-25. 3, adopt a resolution setting a special rate within CFD number 3, Sea Bridge at Mandalay for fiscal year 24-25. 4, adopt a resolution setting a special rate with CFD number 4, Sea Bridge at Mandalay fiscal year 24-25. 5, adopt a resolution setting a special rate within CFD number 5, River Park for fiscal year 24-25. 6, adopt a resolution setting a special rate within CFD number 8, Sakioka Farms Parks for fiscal year 24-25. 7, adopt a resolution setting a special rate within CFD number 9, North Shore and Mandalay Bay, fiscal year 24-25. 8, adopt a resolution setting a special rate district within CFD number 2003, Oxnard Boulevard Highway 101 interchange for fiscal year 24-25. And 9, authorize a public works director or designee to execute an agreement for the billing of district assessors with the Ventura County Auditor's Controller to provide the service of placement of a direct assessment on the Ventura County Secure Board. The Finance and Governance Committee approved this item 3-0 on May 28, 2004, and there was a pre-recorded item, and we do have our finance director for any additional questions. Any speakers on this item?
Mayor Zaragoza, we do not have any speakers on this item. However, Councilmember Turan does have his hand raised.
Go ahead, Councilman Turan.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to take the opportunity, I believe I do this annually now, but just to thank the staff and the residents of CFD 5 in River Park for the collaborative relationship they have on working together on reviewing the budget, seeing what all of their expenditures look like, and providing input to special districts on the resident side on what they would like to see come out of their CFD. And for anyone who's been to the neighborhood council meetings in River Park, you can see that it is truly a collaborative, open dialogue process. And I especially want to thank Mr. Miller and Brandon from Special Districts for their work on this and their accessibility and openness to working directly with residents within the district. So just wanted to take that opportunity to thank everybody who has got us to this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we need a motion on this item.
I'll move the recommended action.
Moved by Councilman Basua.
Second.
Second by Valenzuela. Roll call.
Councilmember Basua?
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Councilmember Perrello?
Yes.
Councilmember Turan?
Yes.
Councilmember Valenzuela?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald?
Aye.
Mayor Zaragoza?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Our next item is item number 3, Cultural and Community Service Department, subject Ventura County Area Agency Nutrition Program. Recommendation the City Council authorize the city manager to enter into a contract in an amount of not to exceed $290,100 with the County of Ventura for the administration of the Senior Nutrition Program. And this was, there was a pre-recorded item, presentation of this item, and we do have Mr. Terrell Harrison Any questions on this item, council members?
Do I have a conflict because I'm a senior citizen?
The senior citizen, but back, any speakers on this item?
We do not have any speakers on this item. However, we do have Councilmember Turan, who has raised his hand.
Councilmember Turan.
Thank you, Mayor. My apologies on not mentioning this ahead of time. This item I see is in agreement with the County of Ventura, and similar to what I've had to do with school districts and previous agreements with the County of Ventura, I will have to recuse myself from any discussion or the vote on this, simply due to the nature of my work and working directly with the County of Ventura as well. So my apologies on that. I will be recusing myself and stepping away.
Thank you. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve this item. No speakers on this item.
Second. Okay, I'll second it.
Okay, first by Zaragoza, second by Perello. Roll call.
Mayor Zaragoza, I have a second by Councilmember Basua.
It's okay, okay, that's okay. See? You're privileged.
Well, and you're not a senior citizen either.
Hey, you're not a senior citizen, can you imagine that?
To confirm for the record, Mayor, I have a motion by Mayor Zaragoza, a second by Councilmember Basua.
Correct.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Okay. Councilmember Basua? Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Councilmember Perello?
Yes.
Councilmember Turan? He is recused. Councilmember Valenzuela?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald?
Aye.
Mayor Zaragoza?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries with 6 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 recusal by Councilmember Turan.
Thank you. Our next item is item number 4. This is the Finance Department, adoption of the fiscal year 24-25 proposed budget. Recommendation of the City Council adopt the following resolutions. A, resolution of the City Council of the City of Oxnard approving the city's operating capital improvement budget for fiscal year 24-25. B, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Oxnard authorizing the full-time equivalent positions in the civil service effective July 1, 2024 in accordance with the operating budget of fiscal year 24-25. And also C, a resolution in the City Council, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Oxnard authorizing the classification and salary schedules and approving the attached classification and salary schedules. D, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Oxnard establishing a finance management policy. And C, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Oxnard establishing an appropriation limit for the fiscal year 24-25. And F, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Oxnard adopting the master fee schedule. And 2, the Housing Board of Commissioners adopt a resolution approving, the Housing Authority operating budget for fiscal year 24-25. And of course, if you would like to review this item, there was a measure and pre-recorded item for the fiscal year 24-25 budget review. And also there's another measure and pre-recorded item for the proposed fiscal year 24-25 annual budget. And of course, the legislative body of the City of Oxnard Housing Authority were involved in this item. And of course, we do have, if you have any speakers on this item, we do have our finance director or city manager if you have any questions.
We do not have any speakers on this item.
Okay, then. Ashley?
Just a few brief comments for you. This is our third meeting with our budget before you this evening. Tonight, we're seeking your approval of the adopted budget. At your last meeting, there were 2 additions to the budget for 2 capital improvement projects. But in summary, we just want to announce again and be excited that despite all the external and social factors related to inflation and the competitive labor market, the bonding litigation by Mr. Starr, that we do continue to make progress. And we projected a $35 million surplus. We've talked about that in many of these meetings. We're recommending that you utilize $20 million of that to pay down long-term pension, use $9.5 million of that to increase your reserves up to 16.6, which is your ultimate policy that you have set currently, utilizing $900,000 of that again for those 2 projects that were added at the last meeting for capital improvement projects. and then leaving 4.6 million that you can discuss again at the mid-year budget next year. But again, just finally, positive message for the fourth year in a row. We are not facing any budget or service cuts of any kind. And with that, we have the executive team and staff, city manager, if you'd like to make any other comments, I'm here to address any questions that you have.
Any other comments before the council members, staff? If not, we'll go ahead and go from there. I like to start off with, to share some comments on council members and members of the staff and members of the audience. I just wrote a couple items because I don't want to miss anything because it's such an important budget, I think. I'm really proud to support this very, very positive budget that the city has, As Steph mentioned, in the report, that many cities right now are facing deficits and budget cuts, and they're really having a lot of trouble with their budgets. But here in Oxnard, due to the city council commitment to improve the long-term financial stability of the city, we achieved another positive budget, which is really, really great. And of course, for the past 5 years, we transitioned from a 9.2 million structural budget, a deficit that was really, really horrible 5 years ago. Now, we're adopting a budget with $35 million surplus. It's just really fantastic. Fantastic that we have this kind of budget in the city of Oxnard. And of course, this is due to a large influx of state and federal dollars that really has helped shorten the general fund spending. And also we also had, the Amazon helped us out quite a bit, and also the most important part is the executive team and our budget team really being very conservative with their budgets, which I think is really, really important. So I also believe that staff is recommending, and I approve it personally, a $20 million payment towards the long-term debt and another $9.2 million towards the reserves for emergencies. We might have an earthquake, who knows, but $20 million I think is going to help us in the future because that's going to help reduce our debt. And also I think it's going to increase our Standard & Poor's rating. And we're going from, I can't recall right now, Ashley, we're going from a AA to a AA plus. Is it a plus?
A plus.
A plus, which is fantastic. And that even 1% that we go down will save us a lot of money in the long run. And I just want to share something back 20-some years ago. I've been a policymaker for 200 years, I believe, or 28 years. In 2000, we had an opportunity at that time when CalPERS had a really, really good stock market at the time, and we made a lot of good money, so they called the cities to say, you guys don't have to pay us money for a couple of years. And during that time, if we would have saved or buy down our debt, it would have really helped us all the way through, but we didn't. And what happened, the money was just spread out amongst the different departments, and it was spent that year, and it was gone. But now we have $20 million that I think are really going to help us out quite a bit. So I really, in conclusion, I believe this is probably one of the best budgets that I've worked with for many, many years, and I just want to commend our staff for doing an excellent job for the community. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, we need to spend it here, we need to do X, we need to do Y. I don't want to go back to what happened 20 years ago. This is going to help us in the long run. And I think Ashley mentioned it for the Finance and Governors Committee. This is going to start right off. It's going to help us immediately. And I know I see staff concurrent with that. So council members, I support this budget, and I got to commend staff for the excellent work they've done for us, and following the city council directions and our priorities. With that in line, Council Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to take a few minutes and commend staff. As council, we're the policymakers. We have the vision, we make suggestions, but it's really the city manager, the assistant city managers, the supervisor leader or supervisory leadership team that does all the heavy lifting, especially on budget. And having gone through many budget cycles when I was working here, that's where the heavy lifting really occurs. And I really appreciate staff and all your efforts for the work you've done. It's especially heartening to me that when you hear a lot of cities saying we have a deficit this year, and the state says we have a deficit this year, and Oxnard is one of the few governmental bodies that says we have a surplus. And it's because of the excellent work of our staff, bringing this to us in a balanced fashion with good recommendations, and I'm very confident that this will be a banner year for us as a city. So I just want to say thank you to all the staff that participated in this, because there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes through this effort every year. So thank you very much.
Councilor Perillo?
I'd like to just echo the comments of the mayor and the mayor pro tem. I can't say it any better. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears where we were several years ago to where we are now. Amazing. Thank you very much.
Councilor Maturan?
Thank you, Mayor. And I will also echo what my colleagues have said, and the mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Councilmember Perillo. I also want to thank the staff. I know that I can't see you right now, but I know that you're all there in the chambers and a few here on Zoom. I just want to thank you for all of your hard work. I know that it has been a challenge fiscally for the city in the past. And I know there's still a lot of need and a lot of work to be done. We have a great team, and I know that that work can be done given the resources we have. And we are still repenting for some fiscal decisions that happened in the past, which is, why we're being incredibly, mindful about what we're doing with this surplus. And I fully appreciate the executive team and all of your folks on your respective teams for helping us figure out how to continue to do this work and still be able to stash away what we need to and pay down some incredibly major debt, which will help us in the long run as well. And again, I can't see the audience, so I'm not sure if the Taxpayer Association is still in the audience. If they are, I hope that you'll consider writing a success story on a city in Ventura County that was $9.2 million in a structural deficit, and in 5 years has turned it around to a surplus like this during a down economy. I think your readers would love to hear that story, especially around the city of Oxnard. So the staff report has some great information. If I could recommend where you can start your research on writing that article. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Council members, any of the comments on this item? If not, excuse me? Any speakers on side? Excuse me.
Mayor, we do not have any speakers for this item.
Okay, so then I would like to go ahead, call the city manager for any comments on this item.
Thank you. I guess I should make some comments. So at the risk of derailing my own budget, you'll note that the fire chief isn't here tonight. He's down under visiting his family. So the police chief took advantage of this and just slipped me a note suggesting that we swap out a future fire truck for 10 police cars.
Right.
Well, I guess there's no motion for that, so that's the end. Thank you.
Okay, so anyway, with that, no speakers, no additional speakers. I love this. I'd like to make a motion to approve this.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, first by Zaragoza, second by Mayor Pro Tem. Roll call.
Councilmember Basuel.
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal.
Aye.
Councilmember Perillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Tehran.
Yes.
Councilmember Valenzuela.
Aye.
Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
You can call me whatever. I'm okay with that. Aye.
Mayor Zaragoza.
Yes.
Will we be doing a separate vote for Housing Authority, or is this vote also including the
Steve,
Housing Authority commissioners?
Does that include the Housing Authority?
You made the motion.
I did. Yes, yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, I'm going to call for a recess for 5 minutes. However, we have item 5 that my understanding, if you're waiting for item number J5, that's been removed. Or pulled, okay? So we're going to have a 10-minute recess. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to resume our meeting. And before we go to item 6, I have a little personal point of reference I'd like to share with the folks at this time. And I'd like to read it because I think it's really important. It just, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed council members and members of the audience, it is with great humility and gratitude that I announce that I'm not going to seek re-election for the mayor of the city of Oxnard. You know, I've serving the resident of Oxnard for the last 3 decades. It's been a profound honor and privilege for me to continue to fulfill my duties for the next 5 months as your mayor until we get a new mayor elected. So I want to share with you that I pledge my full support and ensure a smooth transition for a better and beloved Oxnard. I want to thank and express my sincere gratitude, as I mentioned before, to the city council, one of the best city councils I've ever served with, to our staff, one of the best staffs that I've ever worked with, and it was proven today, you know, how good our staff is. And the residents of Oxnard, thank him for the support they've given me throughout the years. So I'll be here for the next 5 months, but thank you again, and no more John Zaragoza for mayor. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say thank you very much for your leadership. This has been one of the best councils I've had the opportunity to work with, one of the best groups I've had to work with. And through your leadership, I think the city is on the right track moving forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Okay.
Mayor.
Councilman Basua?
Mayor, it's been a privilege, even though I know it's only been a few years that you've been here with us. And I don't like hugs, but I feel a need to hug you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so. Get out. No, I really appreciate that. To me, that means a lot, you know. Councilman Madrigal.
Thank you, Mayor. I've had the privilege of knowing you for about 8 years, and always been a top-notch person, straightforward, someone that, you know, I could look up to. Thank you for showing me around, even though you weren't on the council then. You were supervisor. But you always gave me great advice, and actually, thank you for checking up on me when I was sick. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Gabe, Councilor Turan.
Thank you, Mayor. Not to get into extended discussion on it, just to thank you for your service to the community of Oxnard for 200 years. And much appreciated. I truly do feel that I have had the privilege and the fortune to serve on this council with you at the helm. And I just want to thank you for all you've done, not only in this term as mayor, but everything preceding as our supervisor for 3 terms. And your tenure as a council member and a mayor pro tem prior to that. So thank you again for your service to this community.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Perrella?
Yeah. Mayor, I would like to just say, I first met you in 1998 in South Bank Neighborhood Council. A lot of water under the bridge. I've learned a lot from you. I've had to temper my views on things, and you did school me tremendously. I want to thank you very much, and I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to work with you once you got on this council and I was with you. I saw a totally different side of you, and I appreciate it. I hope you have an enjoyable retirement from public service. I know you won't quit everything, but I hope you enjoy the rest of your life, and I mean that. Thank you. And I mean that also. I will never forget when my wife passed, you reached out and you made a tremendous offer, and I'll never forget that. I'll hold you very close for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Solin?
Yes, Mayor Zaragoza. Thank you for your decades of service to the city of Oxnard. And I know I've had the opportunity to know you for like over a decade now and really enjoyed my time over the past 15 months serving with you on the city of Oxnard. And I really appreciate any mentorship that you've given to me and, looking forward to still leaning on your shoulders moving forward in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, before we go to item number 6, I just want to, I'm going to date myself really. I know that Councilor Tron says 200 years, but I'm going to date myself because I started working with the city of Oxnard October the 5th, 1962. So that was 200 years ago. But that was many, many, many years ago, and I was just a little boy when I started. I was 20 years old at that time. So don't put the numbers together. But thank you anyway, and I really appreciate that. I know I have another 4 or 5 months, but I'll be here 100%. Thank you. Okay, item number 6. This is a Public Works Department Subject Agreement 325017 with Green Coast Landscape Incorporated for landscaping services in various city locations. Recommendation the City Council authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with the Green Coast Landscape Incorporated for the amount not to exceed $1.2 million for the annual 1-year term starting July 1, 2024 to July 30, 2025, with the option to extend for 4 consecutive 1-year option terms. This shall not exceed the total of 5 years for a final term ending June 30, 2029 for landscape maintenance services at various city locations. The Public Works Transportation Committee approved this item 3-0, May 28, 2024. And there was a pre-recorded item under Measure M. And also then we have, Mr. Miller? Any questions of staff? No questions on staff? Any speakers on this item?
Mayor, we do not have any speakers on this item.
So we need a motion.
Moved. Second.
Moved by Perello, second by Valenzuela. Please vote. Perello, Valenzuela.
Councilmember Basua? Aye. Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Councilmember Perello?
Yes.
Councilmember Tehran?
Yes.
Councilmember Valenzuela?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald?
Aye.
Mayor Zaragoza?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you for the presentation. Okay, item 7, this is Public Works. Second Amendment to Agreement A8368 with Toter LLC for the purchase of residential curbside collection carts and parts. Recommendation the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute a Second Amendment to Agreement number A8368 with Toter LLC in the amount of $560,000 for a total not to exceed $2,085,000 for the replacement of curbside carts and parts. The Transportation Committee approved this item 3-0, and there was a pre-recorded under Measure M, and we do have.
Eric Zetz.
I was going to mention your name, Eric. Let me get a chance.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, any speakers on this item?
Mayor, we do not have any speakers on this item.
Councilman Perello?
Yes, there was a nice presentation of the Public Works. There were not many questions asked, but I would like to bring a point that I did bring up at that time. There are still numbers of trash can lids that are breaking. It's not that they're not being repaired, they are breaking. I think it would benefit the city of Oxnard when the city's website has an indication, if you have a problem with a trash can, that you identify, also step down, that there's identification of just the lid. I mean, we could have the trucks and the people going around just replacing lids, not the entire trash can. I think the people that are residents are sharp enough to understand if it's the wheels, axles, and the body, that it's the whole trash can. But that's just a thought. I think it would benefit our city.
And I also want to share too, that I know many months ago, even last year, we had numerous calls on lids here, lids here. Almost every day I get a call. Now it gets minimal calls, if any at all, So thank you, and thank you, the ER personnel and yourself for excellent work.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Tehran?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Zetz, for the information and the presentation on the Second Amendment. I know that there's an ongoing effort within District 2 regarding containers and lids. I want to thank you and your team for all the work you've been doing on that. I look forward to reporting on that in the future to my colleagues. But excuse me, I just wanted to share something along the lines of what Councilmember Perello brought up regarding information about replacing lids and containers. I think I mentioned it when we had the 311 update, annual update on that system. I hope that there can be consideration on adding within the trash service module to have its own module asking, for someone who wants to request a replacement lid or container, and they'd have the ability to take a picture of it, put in their service address, all that stuff. So I just wanted to take an opportunity to mention that again. So thank you again, much appreciated.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Eric. Okay, we need motion on this item.
I'll move the recommended action.
Second.
Moved by Basua, second by Valenzuela. First Basua, second Valenzuela. Roll call.
Councilmember Basua.
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal.
Aye.
Councilmember Perello.
Yes.
Councilmember Turan.
Yes.
Councilmember Valenzuela.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
Aye.
Mayor Zaragoza.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Eric. Our next item is item number 8, Public Works Agreement number 3250013 with Conoco Toro Incorporated for DBA McValley Oil Company for the purchase of and delivery of bulk lubricants and antifreeze. And one, the recommendation of the City Council, one, approve and authorize the mayor to execute an agreement number 3250013 with Conoco Toro Incorporated, DBA McValley Oil Company, in the amount not to exceed $1,540,000 for the initial one-year term, July 1, 2024 to June 30, 2025, with the option for four consecutive years, one-year period extensions that shall not exceed a total of 5 years, for a final term ending June 30, 2029 for the purchase and delivery of the lubricants and antifreeze to various city locations. The Public Works Department did approve this item 3-0, May 28, 2024. And there was a pre-recorded item under Measure M. And do we have any speakers before we ask the council members if they have any questions?
Mayor, we do not have any speakers for this item.
Okay, any speakers? Excuse me, any comments, Councilman Peralta?
I would just like to say again, the presentation at the Public Works Committee was very good. There were several questions, thoroughly answered, and if there is no further discussion, I'll move the recommended action.
Second.
Okay, so first by Councilor Peralta, second by Valenzuela. Roll call.
Councilmember Basua.
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal.
Aye.
Councilmember Perello.
Yes.
Councilmember Turan.
Yes.
Councilmember Valenzuela.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
Aye.
Mayor Zaragoza.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, our next item, item 9, this is City Attorney Department. Subject 9212, report regarding the following initiative measures. Repeal the community facility number 5, River Park, special taxes. Reduction of the maximum special tax that can be imposed within a community facility district number 5, River Park, and the limitations and uses of special taxes for community facility district number 5, River Park. Recommendation, the City Council receive an election code section 9212 report prepared by Russ Branson regarding the following initiatives certified by the city clerk is sufficient. Repeal the community facility district number 5, River Park, special taxes, a reduction of the minimum tax, special tax that can be imposed within the community district number 5, River Park, and the limitation on the uses of special taxes for the community facility district number 5, River Park. The legislative body of the City Council acting as the legislative body of the community facility district number 5, River Park. The contact person of this item is our city clerk. So any speakers on this item?
Mayor, we do not have any speakers on this item.
Ken, do you have any additional items that you'd like to share on this particular item? If not, we.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Go ahead.
We have one virtual speaker that just raised their hand.
Okay.
One moment, please.
Okay, Ken, we'll listen to the speaker first.
Okay.
Mhm.
Caller with number ending in 2382, please unmute yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Hi. First of all, Mayor Zaragoza, thank you so much for all you have done. This is Debbie Mitchell, and I have butted heads with you in the past, and I have to say, heartfelt, I am sorry that you are not going to run again. Seeing this council and staff has been awesome.
Thank you.
On this particular item, I have a few questions about outreach to the residents. Some comments that I've seen on social media seem to indicate that people were uninformed or felt that they didn't know that there were going to be these kinds of taxes imposed when they bought their house, and that it seems high, and the historical references that I've seen, in my opinion, go back a number of years of concern to council and staff that was predominantly different. And I know that special districts has been through kind of a very much up and down, with some great people, some not so great people, some confusion, and a lot of messes to clean up from the past. But I'm really concerned that something like this could be much more easily sold. To reduce and pay less in taxes is an easy vote to get. To get a vote to pay more in taxes because of deferred maintenance and infrastructure concerns is much harder. And from where I sit, where we're facing, attempting to get our homeowners, and most of them, I think, will agree that they want to pay more and have been held back by all of the laws that taxpayers have voted in to disallow increases when needed, or to make it very difficult to increase taxes. I just really hope that the homeowners are understanding that their property values could go down so fast from deferred maintenance, lack of maintenance, and for that entire development not looking like what it looked like when they bought their property. This just really, really concerns me, that it seems not well communicated, and I could be totally wrong, to the homeowners and the adjacent homeowners in the communities around it. Our lack of funding within our facilities district impacts the developments that we are adjacent to, by a perception that we don't pay for something that they pay for. And it's very hard to get people to understand that it's like a car. You get out of it what you put into it.
Thank you, Debbie.
Every property matters. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, any other speakers on this item, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mayor, we have 2 additional virtual callers.
Okay.
Caller with number ending in 8693, please unmute yourself. Hello?
Hello, this is Aaron Starr. I wasn't sure whether there was going to be an oral report because Russ Branson is not an employee, but it sounds like there's not going to be one. If there's not going to be one, then I'll speak now. If there is going to be one, I'd like to speak later.
Do you want to speak now, you said?
If there's a report to be given, you go after.
Oh, you want after the report, okay. Okay.
Yeah, if Russ Branson's going to be making a presentation, I'd like to speak after that.
Okay. Okay. Next speaker, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Hernandez, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I just called to kind of see the thought process between the different council members here on why they are against removing or reducing the CFD 5 special tax, and kind of why, if you don't agree, why you believe that the River Park Public Services shouldn't fall under the rest of the City of Oxnard public services budget. So I'm just trying to understand, like, so if another resident within one of the council members' districts needs police services and they're within, the River Park district, they're still going to get the same level of service as anywhere within the city because, the police shortage within the city. If there's a resident in one of the council member districts, if they want to host a birthday party or have soccer practice at a park within River Park, they do the same thing. They reserve it through the city, just as any other park within the city, but we are still taxed for weekly maintenance that these for these parks. And yeah, I just kind of want to hear you guys' thoughts on that. Thanks for having me. Thanks.
Thank you. Any additional speakers, Madam Clerk?
Yes, we have one more.
Thank you.
Caller with number ending in 6377, please unmute yourself.
Hello.
Yes, hello. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Mayor Zaragoza, this is Manuel Herrera, creator of Citizens for a Better Oxnard. And first of all, I too would like to thank you so much for your 200 years of service to the city of Oxnard, even though we've only been incorporated for like 100 years, but
120.
anyways, 120, there you go. So I want to thank you. I mean, there'll be more to come. We still got 5 more months
That's right.
of you, so we'll look forward to that, and there'll be plenty of time for celebration. But anyways, thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
So I'm calling regarding this particular item here, and I mean, what else can I say that I haven't already said, in that this is just a fair warning to the people at River Park, rather. Be careful what you vote for. I'm not here to tell you how to vote, but be careful, read the fine print, because I've stated before that when it comes to Aaron Starr, you have to read the fine print. He's very good at stretching the truth, at only telling you certain details. I mean, there's a saying that when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. And he has ran for office, 5, 6 times, has been rejected by the citizens of Oxnard. Now he's trying to run again. And I know I come down on him hard, but I just don't appreciate everything he's doing to, you have the city taking 2 steps forward, and then we have to take 1 or 2 steps backward because of him. I don't know who died and made him the king of Oxnard, but, just be careful with this guy. Be careful what you vote for, because what he says you're getting is not what you're getting. Do the homework, read the fine print. This is a fair warning, because if you vote in his favor and you vote for his initiatives, you're going to also find out that a lot of this was not true. Now, he will be talking. He asked to speak later, so he can address what I'm saying if it's not true. But I'm telling you, I know what I'm talking about, and he knows that I know what I'm talking about. So just be wary, do your homework, read the fine print. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Madam Clerk, any other speakers on this item?
We just have Mr. Aaron Starr, who will speak after the presentation.
Thank you. Ken? Mm-hmm.
Before we turn this matter over to Russ Branson, just a very brief introduction. As already was indicated, on May 21st, the council ordered the preparation of a 9212 report. And this report, which you will see in a moment, actually helps address some of the questions that Mr. Hernandez and other citizens are asking. Briefly, the three measures that Aaron Starr, Alicia Purcell, and Daniel Wokenfeld proposed, one would repeal the CFD taxes altogether. One would cut the max tax by 50%, and the third would limit the use of special taxes for the CFD and likely have a substantial impact on the services that would be provided. In order to really have an independent look at this, the city did retain Russ Branson, who we used 4 years ago to analyze 5 of Mr. Starr's measures at the time, and he will be making his presentation and give his findings. Then after his presentation, Mr. Branson and city staff will be available to answer the questions that you have. So I'll now turn it over to Russ Branson.
Mr. Branson, okay. Mr. Branson?
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Ken and Mayor and Council. I'm happy to be here tonight. Just really briefly, I spent actually most of my career in one way or another dealing with community facilities districts. I started off with a consulting firm and was for 10 years a special tax consultant, forming both bonded and services districts for Mellow Rooster in the 90s. I then spent 14 years as finance director and assistant city manager with the city of Roseville in Northern California, where we formed, many CFDs. Again, so I actually administered CFDs that I'd formed as a consultant, and have continued doing this work periodically since that time in my private consulting practice. So I have a lot of experience on the CFD side as well as just the city finance side. So with that, let me share my screen. And let's see here. Sure. Okay. And you should be able to see my my presentation.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to just give, I have provided the city with a report on this, and I'm going to give an overview of that in this presentation tonight. Okay. As Ken mentioned, there are 3 initiatives. One, to reduce the special tax by 50%. And as we go through this, I'll get into the details more, but I estimate that will actually reduce needed taxes by about $1 million in fiscal year 25. So there'd be a kind of a loss of $1 million of revenue that would otherwise go for the maintenance of parks based on the budget for this year. Special tax limitations. This is a more difficult one to estimate exactly what will happen financially because it says you can do some things after the city has funded something else. Will the city fund that or not? What is not in that mix? We'll talk about that a little more. But that's around $2.2 million loss of revenue. And that could be lower, it could be higher. And the third is repeal of the CFD, which would just eliminate all special taxes in the district. And that results in, for fiscal year 25, a loss of, for what the budget says, what the city's budget says is needed, is $4.2 million. So those are the 3 initiatives. So that's a high-level view of the financial impact of these. But I want to talk a little more about the other impacts, because the impacts aren't just, hey, what happens to the tax? Because if one or more of these initiatives is passed, and there's a financial impact in terms of the amount of money generated by the special tax collections for parks and landscaping and all the other things that are done in CFD number 5, the city also then has a choice, right? And there's 2 basic choices. The first one, which is at the top here, the city could fund, the current level of CFD number 5 services, meaning if they eliminate the tax, the city will step in and fund that 4.2 million. If the tax is cut and the max tax is cut in half, and there's $1 million loss, the city steps in to do that. Now, the impact on the city, if they do that, there's going to be a reduction in funding for other needed services, whether that's, you just talked tonight about having a surplus coming into fiscal year 25. And what are you doing with that surplus? You're using it to pay down bonds and pay down other liabilities that helps the city for the future. So this would, this would be competing with those kind of choices. There's also potential reduction in all city park maintenance. If you take, and we'll talk a little more about this as we go through, but you could say, we have a limited amount of money for parks, and even if we increase it, it's not quite what we have, and so we're going to have to reduce park maintenance everywhere, or we're not going to do much for this, for these parks, we'll do more somewhere else. So these are, that's if the city makes a choice, we're going to try to, bridge that gap, right? For the River Park neighborhood, they have annual tax savings for the property owners, which is great. There's not much change in this one in terms of services that they've been receiving. What's the city, I think the likelihood of this is probably unlikely due to your other funding needs, which we'll talk about a little later. The other choice the city has is use available special taxes, fill in where you need to, where you're required to for health and safety reasons, but not fill in the full amount that's being lost. So this, you may still fund critical maintenance needs, but other funding impacts of things that, especially if there's a repeal, you just may not, you're probably unlikely to put in the same level of funding that they're putting in now. So you would see a reduced level of parks and landscape maintenance, maintenance and capital replacement. You'd probably get fewer services in the neighborhood, including extra police patrols. We'll go through this a little here in just a minute. And this is just the most likely outcome because, as you know, and as you have talked about, boy, isn't this a great budget? And we don't want to do what we've done before, which is when we have great budgets, use it to fill in these other kinds of, kind of funding needs. But we want it to make some impact on the city for the future. So given what I've heard tonight, just in earlier presentations, and what I see when I look at your budget and other things, again, we'll talk about that some more. That's probably the most likely outcome. So I want to keep, both these outcomes, there's city choice for the future. They're not the choice tonight. They're not the choice when the voters vote. But if one of these pass, they will be a choice the city's going to have to look at and make. So let's just I want to do a quick overview of CFD number 5. So as we talk about this, we have, some context. When you form a community facilities district, there are three main things you do. One is you define what areas in the CFD, right? So what's the boundary map of the CFD? This is the open space concept from the specific plan for River Park. And so this is generally contiguous with the CFD. The CFD and the River Park specific plan are, they're coterminous there. This also shows the amount of green space that's in the River Park area. So there's 7 parks, which is over 19% of the city's total 36 parks. And that's just on a park by park basis, not park acres. But you have street landscaping, freeway frontage, neighborhood district buffers, bike and pedestrian paths, right? So there's a lot going on in this CFD. And I think one of the reasons that the city said, when we formed this specific plan, we need a funding source because there's a lot more here than you have in other parts of the city. So this is one. What's the boundary of the CFD? The second thing you do is you say, what are the authorized services? When we levy this tax, what can we pay for? Well, this was established in 2005. It was established before, the completion of all the homes and businesses, so it was still being developed. And so the authorized services that are allowed to be paid for with the CFD special taxes it's pretty broad, right? Maintenance of parks and parkways, open space, flood and storm protection, police protection, fire protection and suppression, ambulance and paramedic services, authorized, but not funded. right? Local park and recreation things, recreation programs. So there's a wide variety of things that you can fund. Not all things are funded. But what it does do is allows a consistent funding source to take care of all of the parks and landscaping and pathways and programs, and to provide extra police protection within your parks and trails. This is all the things that it can do. And how does it do that? You do that by establishing maximum special taxes. And so for CFD number 5, the maximum special taxes in that first row of numbers from FY06 max tax, these were the amounts, and they varied by size of the single family attached or detached unit, or there's affordable and high density and non-residential costs or taxes as well. But these were the taxes that were established when the CFD number 5 was formed. It also allowed for an inflationary factor of between 2 and 5% per year. And so as that the CFD has grown, now it's grown an average of 2.69% per year from 2005 to 2024. So that's pretty reasonable growth rate. And so now you have these max taxes in the fiscal year we're currently in. These FY24 max taxes are shown here. And so they've grown, substantially over the years, but it's kept up with inflation. And that's the reason for that escalation rate. And actually, when you look at the FY24 special tax levy, it was just over half of the max tax that they could levy. So the city has not levied everything. It has services that it could collect for, but doesn't. And it really focuses its service on those local, parks, landscaping, trails, and things of that nature within the River Park specific plan area. So how did I get the fiscal impact calculations? So I just want to go back to that. I gave you the big overview. So let's talk about what I term CFD special tax reduction. And this reduces the current max tax by 50%. So it cuts it in half, which on its face looks fine for what the FY24 rates were, but not so great for what the FY25 and beyond needs are going to be. So if this one happens, there will be a reduction in that maximum tax that the city can levy. So they can't go above that maximum. So if you cut the max in half, that's the new ceiling. Residents are then really likely to pay that maximum special tax each year with inflation, because that new tax they'll show in a second is going to be less than what's needed to maintain the facilities. If you're $1 million over the max, if your max tax is $1 million under what you need to maintain, you're going to see a reduction in services. You just don't have the same amount of money to put into your maintenance costs for this area. And also reduced ability to maintain park and landscape features and facilities as they age. The city has been able, through tax levies, to put money aside to reinvest in facilities, which is a really amazing ability to do. And most cities, most park departments that I see do not have these kind of funds, and you have those because it's a special tax. So how do we get the number? So I just want to break this down. So for fiscal year 24, from the annual tax report, you actually had $3.9 million total budget. 3.5 million is for maintenance services. 415,000 was for what they call administrative fees. And then there was a levy credit, which means, we collected more than we'd spent in the past. We're going to now give a credit. So that reduced the tax levy below what the maintenance cost needs are, right? So to 3.2 million. The budget for maintenance services is 4.3 million, inclusive of administrative fees. Levy credit, I both didn't have information on whether that was available, but even if you have something this year, it's not going to be available in future years. And you're going to have this shortfall. So the actual special tax levy need, the maintenance needs, are 4.3 million. Under this initiative, the max tax for fiscal year 25 would be 3.3 million. So it's just under $1 million impact differential between what the maintenance needs are and what you can collect on this new max tax if this initiative is approved by the CFD voters. Okay, number 2, special tax limitations. Now this one, there's a lot of words on here, but I want to point out a few things in terms of there's a lot of limitations that would be put on the city if this initiative passes. And I want to read the first one. Limit CFD funding for maintenance of parks, parkways, and open space to beyond that of standard municipal services. And I'll come back to that phrase in a minute. And this is one where this is an estimate. The current funding needs is 2.6 million. That's for the wide range of things done throughout the CFD. And I've based on some conversations with staff, depending if the city steps in and funds more or not, that choice that they have to make, estimated that there'll probably be about $1.5 million initiative funding. Now, again, this is a pretty, that one's pretty loose. But then if you go down to prohibit CFD funding to maintain sports fields, well, that's just gone. The budget for this year for FY25 is $300,000. That could not be charged. Restrict CFD funding for flood and storm protection beyond standard. We don't know exactly what standard is for the city. And so, we think that will be gone as well. Another 300, that's a $300,000 budget. Limit police protective services to 1 supplemental officer or the full-time equivalent, excluding overtime. The city is actually increasing the amount of tax for police protection services based on requests from the community to $312,000. The number I got for the police officer that usually is assigned to these duties, typically a newer person, FTE cost of $127,000. And so there'd be a change of $185,000 that you wouldn't have, or the city would have to fill in to provide those extra services. Recreation program services, they're funded by the general fund already. Limit the annual cost of running the CFD to $100,000. Again, the administrative fees are for 24 based are $415,000 estimation, and so that would be a loss of $315,000. Prohibit payments for fire protection. They're also haven't been funded, aren't funded by the CFD. And then the limit funding for local park recreation, again, beyond that, included above in that first one we talked about. And then there's just other equipment and things that I assume, well, you might be able to keep funding that. Overall, about a $2.2 million difference. But what you can see is, what I want to talk about a little, is there's some difficult provisions in this initiative. One, when you say special taxes will not pay for the supplemental cost of enhancing services beyond that of standard municipal services, this one would require the city to have a certain amount of investment into that park before any additional CFD monies could come. So even if there's things you wanted to do, if the city said, we just don't have enough money to provide whatever you define standard municipal services as, so we can't, even if you want to do it, can't put that extra amount of tax because it doesn't meet the standard of, beyond other standard municipal services. And as I've kind of indicated, the definition of standard municipal services, it's not in the initiative, it's not in city regulations, it's not something the city uses to define types of services. We will look a little bit in a minute at what that, just different levels of service that are provided. But this could lead to lawsuits, right? Because there is not a definition, the city may say one thing, the proponents of the initiatives may say something else. And it's not uncommon when there are difference of opinions, then there are lawsuits. So that's just, I think that's the difficulty of this one in particular, just understanding the impact. But we're trying to do as best we can for the financial impact, and then the other impacts we'll talk about as we go through other potential impacts. And CFD number 3, there we go, repeal of the CFD. So this just repeals it on June 30th following the vote. And you just lose all that revenue, right? So for FY25, it would be that loss of $4.3 million for the parks, landscaping, storm drainage, maintenance, and police protection, and the gym and all these other things. I just don't see that the city's going to come in and replace that level of parks. The city may come back with a very minimal level of service given other needs that they have, and the fact that there has been funding and the owners have decided they don't want to fund that anymore. But those are choices the city council and city staff are going to have to grapple with and make if this passes. And so we'll talk in a minute just about what those choices might entail. But if the city did step in and say, yeah, we're going to put more money here, you're likely to see a reduction, just in overall reduced services citywide, as well as you may see, they may be making choices of, okay, we're going to hold off on building this new fire station or adding services somewhere else. These are the kind of choices that are going to come when there's this loss of revenue that the city has relied on, for a long time. Landowners get to choose this. So that impact, I think we've talked about. And the other thing I want to point out here is that, this tax need is 4.2 million. The maximum tax in 25, if it's not repealed, right, is 6.7 million. So there's not just the amount that you're funding for maintenance, but there's also this loss of capacity to fund other things in the future. Okay, so I want to talk a little about River Park maintenance funding, and I did read something in the newspaper this past week where one of these issues was discussed, right? But I want to talk about this. The River Park CFD didn't happen in a vacuum, and I don't think that the property owners, if they vote to lower or reduce or eliminate the taxes, should have an expectation that the city's going to step in and make up that funding difference. And the reasons I think that are, one, the specific plan when this was done, and I worked on a number of specific plans in my career and did financing plans and CFD plans for these and fiscal studies for specific plans. And Roseville was a very high growth area all the time I was there. And you form these districts because what's happening, and I think everything I know about the River Park CFD, and I've spent time in Oxnard, is that this specific plan came in with a higher level of amenities than much of the city had at that time in 2005. And the city looks at these things and says, how do we pay for this? How do we pay for these extra, landscaping? How do we make this whole thing work? We really want this. And they fund it through, originally it was thought of to be through a landscape maintenance district, and now CFD ultimately decided upon. The services CFD is levied on real property to fund the services. Without the CFD, just from my experience, without those funding measures, or the funding measures were always key pieces. And in talking with staff members, it was also a key piece for the River Park specific plan. The approval of the plan was the fact that there was a funding mechanism to pay for these higher levels of service. And lastly, the property owners did purchase the properties with full knowledge of the CFD. Now, I think that there has been, since the mid-90s, there's been requirements for disclosure where property owners have to sign. Those have been strengthened. I don't know exactly when those are strengthened, but some property owners, when they're signing everything and they get really excited about a house, maybe don't notice what's going on. I know that usually by the 2000s, I was seeing that most people did understand and the disclosure was pretty upfront. And so I think most people sign built into the price, built into their calculus of, do I want this house? Is there value with these CFDs? Typically, it was, they made those choices knowing the CFD was in place. So I think there's a lot of factors that go into. It's not just these owners are being punished with the CFD. This was something that came with the property and came with the development, and typically these come with additional services than other places in the city. Okay, so let's talk a little about the funding of parks and landscaping in the city. And one of the things that I think is important to recognize in terms of the impact of this and the question, will the city step in and make up these monies, is that currently the city general fund pays 55% of parks and landscaping funding within the city. Special districts, including landscape maintenance districts and CFDs, pay 45%. So there's a significant amount of funding that is coming from property owners in a range of different special maintenance districts. You can see here 20% on the left. Here's the general fund, that 55, 20% of the additional cost comes from special maintenance districts, 10% from other CFDs, and 14% from CFD 5 alone. So CFD 5 is a large CFD, and there's a lot of money coming from them. But the city has a way of funding, especially in newer areas, using landscape maintenance districts and other CFDs to fund this. And so you get 55-45 split in terms of how they're funding parks and open space, that if you actually had CFD 5 was to say, no, we want to repeal, we don't want to do this, and the city came in and said, okay, we'll come in and fund that for you, you're likely to see all these other maintenance districts and CFDs say, yeah, if you're going to pay for it, we don't want to pay our taxes either. And you could see really a significant increase in what the city might have to fund just to maintain current levels of service. We talked earlier about what's the difference in frequency, and there's a couple things I want to talk about on this chart. One is that the standards are different. So this is for general fund frequency versus river park frequency for services in parks. Many things that are done, say, annually in a general fund park, turf aeration is done 3 times a year. In river park, dethatch, not done in general fund parks annually. They're overseeding twice a year, right? Fertilization quarterly or monthly versus what happens in city parks. One that I noticed, there's a trash and debris pickup 1 time a week in general fund parks, daily in river park. Trash can servicing, I don't know exactly what it means, but it seems to be done more in general fund parks. But I think it's a minor thing. So what you can see is there's just the level of service that are being provided, and is different. And I think that when you look at, this is probably what's meant. This is what I think is probably meant by standard general fund services, is do these things. City, you pay for these things, and if then you can charge on top of that, I think, right? But that's somebody else might have some different view of what that means. And over here, what in terms of just looking at, this is from staff, parks and landscaping maintenance cost per acre for the general fund is actually higher than in the CFD. I think that's because the CFD has a higher proportion when you mix things together, parks and landscaping. CFD has a lot of landscaping along with a lot of parks. And so that kind of leads to an overall lower. So what is the standard? Should the city put in more, or is this the standard 15,000 an acre? So this, I'm trying to also point out, one, there are differences that the residents and businesses get something of value, but that there are also questions about what is standard level means. There's 2 different ways of looking at it here. Cost per acre, or exactly what you're doing. And if one person chooses one, one's the other, then you have a lot of, just chaos in terms of what can we fund, what can't we fund, what do we levy? So we talked a little about funding competition. So if there's general fund support for a loss of revenue from this CFD, the city, this is the choice, right? Should the city divert its resources to CFD number 5 to fill that in? Or does the city fund deferred maintenance? Or does the city continue investing in citywide capital and other services? So there's lots of options for spending money. And my experience is that very few cities, maybe no cities, get to the point of there's no need of additional funding. And so let's point that out. I start up here with this, the general fund budget. There's two things going on here because we've had this conversation. The general fund expenses are 20 billion more than the general fund revenues in 2025. But as we've heard, what's happened is there's carryover, right? A higher unassigned fund balance at the end of 24, and we're spending that down by reducing debt and doing other long-term liabilities, and that shows up as a deficit. But my point is not there's a deficit as much as there's, the city is taking monies as they have them and using it to make investments back into the city to reduce long-term needs. Now, in addition, and this is from the FY22 capital improvement program for the city, there's $603 million over the next 5 years needed for additional park maintenance citywide, roads, alleys, stormwater drainage, and things of that nature. Long-term liabilities, there's currently a $355 million unfunded liability with CalPERS, and then there's a $49 million retiree health liability that's unfunded. And then, this is just if you have 1 to 4 million per year, and growing of a loss of revenue from CFD number 5, how does it fit in? Again, choices that the city will have to make. In addition, and I heard again conversation about this, how the city is doing really well while many cities are faltering, right? The city was faltering 5 years ago and had deficits, and it's kind of come back based on how they spend their money and how they apply, how you've put together budgets to make that work. There's also economic and political uncertainties, right? A new Costco in Camarillo could impact city sales tax. Ongoing litigation and use of leased revenue bonds, right? Means more PAYGO funding needed. We may not be able to sell bonds to do things, but we may have to say, we need to put money aside to pay as we go because we don't have, or we have limited, ability on some of these bond issues. And then you have the Measure O voter reapproval in FY28. And so, I'm not saying if it's going to go through or not, it's just an economic uncertainty that is that's coming down the pike in a couple of years for the city. Okay, so use of general fund balance. This is just another thing. I think we've talked about this. This chart, which shows the general fund unassigned fund balance from the city's financial reports going back to 2014 for the last 10 years, shows a lot of volatility. You had a rise in 2017. It's gone down to where it was actually negative in 2021. It shot up in 22, 23. It sounds like it's going up again in 24. So, and that's all great, right? Those fund balances. But if CFD number 5 costs could erase this fund balance in 5 years at the furthest end, right? If that was eliminated and the city said, yes, we're going to take fund balance to pay that, this fund balance of less than 20 million in 23 would be gone in less than 5 years. So fund balances are volatile. That means sometimes they're up, sometimes they're down. And so you just have to think about that and anticipate that. So again, another reason I think the city would probably choose not to step in and backfill. All right, so summary. So I think this is looking at each of these. The red boxes talk about the potential losses. I do show more of a range here for the number 2 option, the special tax limitations. the CFD impacts, which are savings on taxes, but could be reductions in maintenance. And city impacts, again, for each one, decision, what do I do? Do I backfill? Do I not do something else? Do I limit something else? And what I've heard from the kind of decisions the city has made to get in the position they're in, they'd probably be more conservative in those decisions than not. So indirect impacts, and this is, let's talk about this. I think that, loss of property values. If there's a special tax reduction, depending again on what happened with the maintenance, and one of the speakers brought this up as well, depending on if the maintenance levels go down, there definitely could be potential loss of property value in that the area you're in isn't quite as nice as it used to be, and that impacts value. Some of these things relate to the city's sharing of the gym and sharing of fields at the school. Now, while yes, the city has a joint use agreement with that, if they can't fund it, they can't fund it. The schools may have to step in and pay more. So that is a potential. These are more indirect, right? Not direct happening. Again, we've talked about impact on park maintenance citywide. And definitely, I think if we're just trying to save money, you could also see a reduction in maintenance, right, in this. So you have to think about what are the broader impacts of these kinds of things. And I think those kind of represent the close universe of broad impacts for this. And then, lastly, one of the things that is one of the reasons a lot of cities started moving to CFD maintenance districts. And it was, there's a combination of Prop 218 passed in 1996, which made it much more difficult to do assessment districts because they had to be for special, you changed whether you had special or general benefit. And so you did see a shift from landscape maintenance districts to CFD services districts. But you have a guaranteed level of funding for those things. So you can have higher levels of service. You can have more parks, more landscaping than you see in other areas of the city because there's a way to pay for that. That's not going to compete with, do we want higher levels of police, or should we do a new fire station, right? Or should we pay off our debt or pay down our deferred maintenance? It's not competing with those things because it's just for this area. The city's doing great, and I'm really happy to hear that. Having done work for the city, as I think is said over the years, I'm really happy to hear how well it's doing. But the city is also doing well because it's done well at paying down debt, investing in the city. And so I think it still has a lot out there that it needs to do, right? A lot of deferred maintenance and other things. And so I'm trying to put myself in, if I was the city finance director for Oxnard, it would be saying, look, we have other things that are happening. So it's still going to be hard to meet all the funding demands, right? You've done well. And what I heard is you still have to, keep that focus to do well in the future. And I think that if they pass, the voters should at least prepare for significant reductions in regular park and landscaping maintenance. That is currently guaranteed. Now. And that is the end of my presentation. Again, I have a study that you may also, that expands on a lot of these things. If you read that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for a very comprehensive report, Mr. Branson. I've heard three things that I think are really important. But a lot of things happened. But when people bought there initially, there's a lot of disclosures that people signed, and my understanding that a lot of people didn't really realize what they were signing. I think that the other thing that you mentioned was the competition for funding. Eventually, if it is approved by, or they do dissolve the CFDs. And also, I don't think it's really fair to the rest of the community, the rest of the city, to pay for funding to take care of those CFD projects and amenities and parks and police additional that they're getting now. So I believe when the people bought those properties that they potentially knew what was happening. And the last thing is, if all those amenities go away, the devaluation of those properties is going to happen, just for information. But Ken, or council members, any of the questions might have? Tehran? Oh, we have a speaker? Okay, go ahead. Oh, Mr.
Yes,
Starr.
thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to remind that we had at least one more speaker pending.
Okay, Mr. Starr.
Well, Mr. Mayor, we also have a speaker on item 10, and we've actually really combined 9, 10, and 11 together, so maybe we should reach out to the speaker on item 10.
I know I have a speaker on 10 and 11 also, so.
Yeah, so maybe offer them an opportunity since we're talking, no?
One item at a time, okay. So anyway, we have Mr. Starr then. Madam Clerk.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Great, thank you.
Mr. Starr?
So one thing I learned today that I didn't know before, I want to thank Mr. Branson for pointing it out, is on page 20 of his presentation, apparently Measure O voters get to vote to reapprove this in 2028. All this time, the council's been talking about how we're supposed to wean ourselves off of Measure O. So I thought that was interesting. Nice to know. So first, let me just point out a few errors in the report, typically math errors. So on the 9212 report itself, on page 17 compared to page 18, you'll notice that it was an attempt to create the same table on page 18, but apparently something got missed. So the revenues for mixed uses was just excluded. So the numbers on the bottom of that page don't add up. I'd also like to point out on page 20 of the report, it absolutely doesn't total correctly. It looks like his middle column of numbers excludes the very last item. So there's an Excel formula error there, and your calculations are just plain off. But let's talk about what's going on here. The reason why these additions are on the ballot is because I had conversations with hundreds of people in River Park over time, and they really felt like they were being ripped off. And they are. In fact,
what do you have?
On page 11 of the... Can you hear me?
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, go ahead.
On page 11 of the report, it mentions, it is likely that the existence of the special assessments and taxes allow the city to provide more attention to the city facilities that do not have this additional funding. And Mr. Branson is correct. And the reason why he's correct is because money is being shifted from River Park to the rest of the city. They don't get any credit for the base property taxes they pay. You're charging them entirely based out of the special tax. And that just rubs people the wrong way. I think they would have been much happier if this tax was only to enhance services, not to supplant the property tax dollars that they're paying that they deserve credit for. I'd like to point out that when the city talks about prohibiting the use of funding, and if somebody could tell me if I've got 30 seconds or 40 seconds left, I'd appreciate it.
23 seconds left.
All right, well, I guess I won't have to get through everything then. But bottom line is that there's a lot of money that's being diverted. People have the right to change their tax rates. We did very recently. My sales tax rate used to be much lower, but now we voted to increase it. We have a right to do that. And city staff in the past has admitted that the money in the CFT was...
Your time is up.
Thank you, Mr. Starr.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional speakers on this item?
Mayor, we have one virtual caller.
Okay.
Caller with number ending in 7359, please unmute. Hello?
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 Yes, please go ahead. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, good evening. My name is Paul Schnadelin. I'm a resident of River Park. I'm speaking as a private citizen tonight. Several days ago, I read through the assessment report that we've just heard about, and I've read through the initiatives, and frankly, it baffles me that anybody would want to propose and support these initiatives that actually live in this community. As the reports pointed out, we actually get better services in the city because of the CFD taxes we pay compared to the folks that receive money out of the general fund. By doing this, we're either going to lose a lot of the services that have been cut back, or in sort of the highly unlikely event that the city is going to foot the bill for us to maintain a set level of services we just asked for our taxes to be cut. There are a couple of things I'd like to point out that the assessment didn't point out. These initiatives have a national bonus that say that any kind of counter initiative filed by the city, including the one that the City Council is going to propose tonight, will be considered null and void. And if there's ever any kind of lawsuit filed to challenge any part of the provisions, that the city taxpayers get to pay for both sides of the legal bill. So, convenient little facts that the supporters of this initiative don't happen to point out when they con people into signing off the bill by making them think that they were going to get lower taxes without any consequences. I was taught a long time ago there's no such thing as a free lunch. These initiatives pass, we're going to pay for it in lower quality landscaping and maintenance. We're going to pay for it in fewer officers available for extra details. And the whole city is going to get to pay for it in terms of legal bills after this election. Plus, you know that the backers of this initiative aren't going to stop with River Park. They're going to go after the rest of the CFDs and make sure that that budget hole becomes an even bigger one over the years. I'd like to encourage everyone out there to read the assessment and the initiatives themselves. I'm sure that once you've done that, you're going to side with me and vote against these initiatives on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, any additional speakers?
Mayor, we do not have any additional speakers on this item.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Anything else that you'd like to share with us?
Not on this item. If there's nothing for the council wishes to speak, then we could go on to item 10.
Okay. Mayor, we got Mayor Pro Tem and then Tehran. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will qualify these statements by saying that I will make the same statements on all three items, but I'll just do them here. Okay. And for consideration on the other two, that way I don't have to burn up a lot of airtime. My understanding of the initiative process, that it was put in to allow people to enact laws or pass ordinances to help benefit them as a community. And I find it interesting that on these particular initiatives, that of the three signers of the initiatives, two of them don't live in the area and are not affected by these initiatives. But I think what's happening, in my humble opinion, someone's trying to run the city of Oxnard, and I think the appropriate way to do that is get elected to office, have a voice on the dais, and instead they're using the initiative process to bypass council. That's just my opinion as an individual. The speaker, Mr. Starr, made an interesting comment about the money from the CFD is being siphoned off for other parts of the city. I think that is wholly inaccurate. I don't think it's the truth. And I don't see anything that would support backing that belief, but that's his belief, not mine. And finally, we're talking about, again, he made the comment that he's talked to several people up there, maybe hundreds of people that think they're getting ripped off by the city. I've not heard that. In fact, I've not talked to a lot of people up there because nobody's reached out to me, but the ones that have reached out have said a couple of interesting things. One, when they bought their property up there, they knew that this Melrose increment was on there. Wasn't a surprise, they were aware of it, and they thought it was appropriate because they thought they were getting better service than other parts of the city. So I'm just trying to find the need, but ultimately it will be the voters' decision as to what they do here. But I think people are being presented with a false a bag of false information to make them think that this is a bad thing. I would tend to disagree with that. And I look at the services that River Park gets, and I look at the services my neighborhood gets, and it's vastly different. I think the area is much better maintained than other parts of the city, but that's based upon the CFD that's in place there that allows them the funding to do that. Again, that's just me as an individual. So I will, and the one other comment that was made was that the Costco in Camarillo is likely going to affect sales tax revenue for the city of Oxnard. Well, if anybody's watching the news, you will know that the Costco in Camarillo is being contested by a grassroots group of folks in Camarillo. It may not even come to fruition. It may never happen. I don't know. That's Camarillo's issue to deal with. But you can't just make a categorical statement of, gee, the Costco in Camarillo is going to affect our sales tax revenue, because it may never happen. We're taking a look at the future and we're guessing. And finally, in terms of the surplus that this city has, do we have a surplus? The answer is yes. Will we have a surplus next year? I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. And there are a lot of different factors that deal with that. Amazon was part of the reason that we are doing well. Well, there may be legislation that changes that position. So I'm not going to even try and venture a guess as to what area we will be in next year in terms of a surplus, other than we will do our best to make sure that we're not in a deficit. But until we get there, we just don't know. So a lot of people are throwing a lot of facts, figures out there that are just not guaranteed. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Teran.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Branson, for the comprehensive information and presentation and the report. Just a couple questions. I'm wondering if Mr. Rozelle or Special District staff would like to respond to some of the questions that were raised in comments earlier by speakers. Specifically, Mr. Hernandez did have a question, and I believe it was answered by the presentation in why this has the potential to negatively affect River Park residents and the city as a whole. But if folks were taking notes on Mr. Hernandez's question, if we could speak to that on just summarize why these three initiatives, how they negatively affect the financial health of the city and how they negatively affect services provided in River Park. I don't know if that's going to be our staff or Mr. Branson for that.
Okay, so who wants to? Ken, you want to?
Well, oh, go ahead.
Or Branson, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll take let me take just a quick shot, because it is stuff I've been thinking about. And I think it gets down to, as I said, that if there's less money to maintain the services, then there's going to be a diminution of services, in those areas. And this becomes a really complex, conversation, because, taxes are paid, and they're not, taxes are paid for the benefit of everyone within the city. And they are paying a special tax, which is only the benefit for these, for them. And people can come and use the parks and go on the trails and things of that nature, but it's primarily a benefit for those people who live in River Park. And so I think the likelihood is, depends on what the city wants to do. I think what you're proposing as a possible, response, which is, we're not, just to say we're not going to backfill all these. There's going to be a reduction in service. There's no way around that. And it's, I'll just say I've worked my career in California public finance. In California finance doesn't make sense, and it's not fair. And some cities win, and some cities lose, and some neighbors win, some neighbors lose. And if I bought my house in 1978 and I never sold it, and someone next door to me bought their house in 2024, we're paying really different property tax rates, right? So there's not a fairness factor per se. And so you have to say, hey, if we say we want to take this money away, the city's going to do what the city's going to do. And now all of a sudden the maintenance becomes a part of the milieu of what do we spend our money on, right? Do we spend it on this, or do we need to do something over here, or do we need to pay off pay in deferred maintenance or pay down debt? And then you become a part of that decision making, where now the value they get is, this is the money used just for the parks and landscaping in your area. That's all it can be used on. There's a list of things that it can be used on. And so I think that's, for me, that's the shift that will happen. And why there will eventually, even if it wasn't the first few years, eventually something's going to happen, and this is not going to be a priority, and maintenance will go down, because that's what happens, and it's guaranteed now.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I hope that answered a portion of the question. I know that there have been discussions around in the past around Measure E and River Parks receiving of Measure E for any type of services or benefits. The former, 2 chairs ago for the River Park Neighborhood Council, it was stated that River Park was not benefiting at all from Measure E, to which a number of times I corrected, saying that if it were not for Measure E, the fire service probably could not have ever been removed from that CFD and been absorbed by the general fund, at least not in the deficits that we were projecting had Measure E not passed. And so to say that Measure E does not benefit or has not benefited River Park, I think they were one of the first beneficiaries of Measure E at that large scale. So if you ever hear that stated, and I believe that's a former resident now, that Measure E does not benefit River Park in any way, that is wholly inaccurate. Mayor Pro Tem mentioned it as well, the statement, the belief, the accusation, whatever verb you want to use, around commingling of general fund with CFD funds. And I will say, and I complimented our special district staff earlier. I maintain that in saying they have done leaps and bounds, amazing amount of work compared to where our special districts were in the previous decade. And I have to give them full credit on that. And there is transparency. If you ever hear someone, River Park residents, if you ever hear someone say it's not transparent, absolutely inaccurate. You can email, you can call special districts anytime and ask them about anything. They will provide that information to you. Now, some people may be unhappy that they can't make things up, or they can't give you information that doesn't exist, but the finances are there in black and white and in numbers. You can access them. You can access them on our online financial tool. There's a number of ways you can see how your CFD funds are being spent, which leads me to my next statement here around the neighborhood council. The River Park Neighborhood Council has absolutely leveled up a number of times their involvement, their understanding, and their level of knowledge on the CFD budget and the funds and the operations of the CFD. I am always encouraging River Park residents, go to the meetings, talk to your chair, get on the email list. Everything is there for you to see when it comes to your budget and what's anticipated to be brought in from the annual assessment and how that's going to be spent. That is a very transparent conversation that's had in public meetings in the neighborhood of River Park, and everybody's invited to those. So I encourage folks to go ahead and do that. Lastly, I hope that Mr. Starr enjoyed the live presentation as much as I did. Had the public been required to view that ahead of time on their own time outside of this meeting as Measure M stipulates? I don't know. What if Mr. Starr didn't have time to see it and he came in here not knowing what he was going to say because it wasn't presented live? I hope he enjoyed that as much as I did. That being said, though, he also referenced, as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, he spoke to hundreds of people who feel like they're being ripped off, I believe were his words. I've been to almost every single River Park Neighborhood Council meeting since coming on board in February 2021. Unfortunately, ironically, the one I wasn't at recently was the one he attended. But since I have been at those meetings, I have to state that I noticed his absence at them. I've spoken to hundreds of River Park residents as well, who are happy with the community they have and the aesthetics of that community and the services that they're able to get, knowing what they bought into, knowing when they signed that dotted line and signed those disclosures, initialed them, they knew what was there. And by educating themselves, attending neighborhood council meetings, understanding how this process works, they fully believe, and I've heard this from people in River Park, that they are happy with what they're getting and how it looks, and they know what they're paying into and what they're getting out of that. And so hundreds of people on my end too. See how that works? I will say though, at the thing where we've had hundreds of people, like at town hall meetings we had over the last few years, the national night outs, the collective River Park Neighborhood Council meetings, I can't recall seeing Mr. Starr or Ms. Purcell there speaking to people or even coming to the neighborhood council and saying, hey, we're thinking about drafting these initiatives. What do you think? It seems like it was kind of a top-down approach, in my opinion. I could be wrong on that. Maybe he had hundreds of people who provided input into how these should be structured. But considering the confusion I hear from residents thus far, I'd like to see that data to show that that's what happened. So anyhow, those are my comments. Again, thank you very much, Mr. Branson, for the presentation. And thank you to our staff for investing a little bit to bring this forward in an objective, neutral report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Perrello.
Thank you. I appreciate the presentation. I appreciate the back and forth dialogue. I really do. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to ask the consultant a couple of questions, please.
Branson.
Mr. Branson, with respect to, you mentioned the sports fields and the courts. The Rio School District has 3 schools in River Park. What will their obligation be? You mentioned that the city of Oxnard and the school district have a joint use, but the obligation of the school district to maintain that on their own, can you weigh in on that? Is it the school or the city, or is it going to be joint use?
I actually think that's more of a Ken question. I haven't really evaluated. I have the agreement and have read through it, but don't know in this situation if there's any kind of switch. I think it's between the city and the school district.
I'm happy to answer.
We have Ken. Go ahead, Ken.
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilmember Perrello, the joint use agreement was entered into in 2005 between the city and the Rio School District before the CFD was actually formed. It was always intended that the CFD would pay for this use because this provides additional park space within the CFD number 5. So that's why the CFD is paying for that. If one of these measures passed that there was not the requirement for the CFD to pay for this cost, then the city would likely not be able to get out of the agreement, but they would definitely hold the Rio School District to the full obligations. As the council may recall, the Rio School District has had a number of disputes with the city in the way that they've handled things. So it is very possible that we would be looking at the level of service that is being provided there as well. But it would not automatically go away. The agreement is drafted. That termination is difficult.
Thank you very much. I have a couple of other comments for my fellow council members and the public. Well before I even had an idea of getting to be a council member, I was involved in a neighborhood council, South Bank. And the neighborhood council had issues, and because of my involvement with that, I was asked to start attending Rio school board meetings. I recall distinctly before 2005, the fighting on the Rio School District about the CFD. They needed to get the approval of the CFD, the school district, to go with the CFD. One specific school board member, Ms. Eva Costa, dug her heels in, and she would not do it because she felt it was unfair for 5 property owners to put these costs on the people that would buy the houses in the future. It was several meetings of a bloodbath. There were recalls. There were a lot of things that happened in the Rio School District. But one of the reasons that the Rio School District was heavily involved is, as it was informed to me by members of the Rio School District, the members of the Rio School District did not think that the residents that lived in the Rio School District would pay for 3 new schools. So these were turnkey, what's called turnkey schools, built by the River Park developer, which ended up having some problems. Forensic audit on a roof of the grammar school. The the junior high school sitting on a oil well and the problems that went along with that and the extra costs to that. And then the third school built on the Santa Clara River levee, which is another issue. The entire, and as I said, this was way before I ever, no dreams at all about being on council. But I remember those meetings. And I remember how the redevelopment of the area was, there was a bankruptcy because of the financial component, the tall tower and the river park. And they figured if they could get them, bail themselves out by combining it with the gravel pits, they could get redevelopment funds and do a lot of creative financing, and they were successful at doing it. The question about the CFD and people not wanting to pay it. Earlier tonight, there were votes. 2 members of this council recused themselves from specific CFDs. I live in a CFD. I know what it means to be in a CFD. The mayor and I both live in different CFDs. I will totally agree with the consultant. When you are hot to trot and you want to buy something and the realtor is talking to you and you have your better half with you and you're looking and it's like, just sign this, sign this, sign this. The understanding of everything involved is not always as good as it should be. And with that, a lot of people get involved in whether it's buying a car, hopefully not a marriage, but buying a house, things happen and you find out things. I, as one council member, will not gut the services the rest of the city of Oxnard is supposed to get to backfill the services of voters in this area do without paying their share, which they obligated to. I need to play the card, put the cards on the table on that. The questions for the consultant. One of the speakers called out that there were some mathematical errors. I think you've had time to hear and double check. Do you find that there are mathematical errors in your report?
I looked at one, and there does appear I had one of the tables I had there was the commercial missing, but it was correct on the table 2 pages before the same table. So I'm not sure what happened there, but not factual in terms of that would affect the outcome of my conclusions.
Okay, I would just like to give you the opportunity to go back and listen to his thing, and if there's a correction, give it to our city attorney or city manager. A question for our legal staff. How many residents live in River Park, and how many residents were required to sign this to get these initiatives on the ballot?
There are just over 4,600 registered voters within CFD number 5. Pursuant to state law, only 104 signatures were needed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rozell. I believe those are all my comments. I do agree with Mayor Pro Tem on issues with respect to Costco and Camarillo and things that could happen with Amazon. This is going to be a real tale of people paying attention and reading. One speaker, Ms. Debbie Mitchell, mentioned how this could impact the entire River Park project, but if River Park project has a major problem, it would be no different than if, say, another neighborhood, say the harbor, and the seawalls start falling into the ocean. It impacts the entire city of Oxnard. Nobody gets out of this alive. This is a very big deal, and it impacts the entire city. I am grateful for the presentation. I'm grateful the opportunity to hear fellow council members. There were one individual spoke and he wanted to know what every council member thought about, these various things. I hope that I've addressed his question. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, any additional comments? Ken, City Manager?
No, this is just receive and file.
Just a receive and file? Okay, thank you. So then we'll go to item 10. This is, item 10 is, subject is City-Sponsored Community Facility District Number 5, River Park, no tax increase, public safety neighborhood services measure. Recommendation of the City Council acting as a legislative body of the Community Facility District Number 5, River Park, City of Oxnard, call for an election for a ballot measure titled Sponsored City-Sponsored Community Facilities, District Number 5, River Park, no tax increase, public safety, neighborhood services measures by adopting a resolution which would order consolidation with the November 5th, 2024 statewide election, request the county clerk to conduct the election, and authorize the Board of Supervisors to canvass the returns. Legislative body, City Council acting as a legislative body of the Community Facility District Number 5, River Park. And the contact person is Mr. Fisher, but we'll go Ken. Any additional information on this item?
Yes, good evening again. Before I start my presentation, for the record, I need to respond to Mr. Starr's allegations. He raised issues claiming the city had violated its sunshine ordinance because it was taking up this election matter. As we just heard at length, we had a detailed 9212 report, which provided a lot of information which is directly relevant to the proposed city measure as well as to the 3-star measures. So it is appropriate and in the public interest for all these matters to be considered tonight. Finally, this item was placed on the agenda tonight in compliance with the Brown Act and with the provisions of the City Sunshine Ordinance, Oxnard City Code Section 2-24A1. So moving on to the presentation, as I alluded to with Mr. Branson's 9212 report, you received a detailed overview of some of the impacts that could occur if one or more of these initiatives were adopted by the residents of CFD. So this next item that we're talking about would provide another option for the residents of River Park to consider, a measure that would maintain CFD number 5's existing services and funding. The proposed city-sponsored measure would ensure that the following services would remain in place at their current levels within CFD 5. So it would maintain all parks and open space areas within River Park. It would maintain the sports fields that are used for youth baseball and soccer. It would help maintain the gymnasium for youth sports. It would fund flood protection and storm protection. It also would provide the additional police patrols, which are above and beyond standard police services. So these are the services that are currently being paid for by CFD number 5. And they, as I mentioned already, they will be funded and maintained at this level. In addition, this initiative goes further. It would remove certain allowed uses that right now a CFD could fund, but they're not funding. So I think it's important for the residents to know that these will not be charges that would ever be imposed on the CFD. And I'll just tick off the list of 5 items that we're proposing to take out of the formation documents for the CFD. This includes ambulance and paramedic services, recreation services, library services, the operation and maintenance of museums and cultural services, and fire protection and suppressant services. To make clear, this really relates only to CFD number 5 funds, but it does not impact the way the city would use its general funds. So staff's recommendation is that the council place, and I'll just give the official title, the measure entitled City-Sponsored Community Facilities District Number 5, River Park, No Tax Increase, Public Safety Neighborhood Services Measure on the November 5th, 2024 ballot. And staff is available to answer any questions that you may have regarding this item.
Thank you, Ken. But I think do we have a speaker on this item?
Yes, Mayor, we do have one speaker that was pre-registered and an additional virtual caller. One moment, please. Ms. Ann Walsh, please unmute. Hello? Ms. Walsh?
We hear you.
Go ahead.
Ann Walsh, please unmute by pressing *6. We can't hear you.
She said,
hello? We can't hear you. Please unmute by pressing *6. Ms. Walsh, we're going to go to the next caller and we'll come back and try again.
Okay, do we have another caller?
Caller with number ending in 6377. Please unmute.
Hello?
Hello, yes, please go ahead. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Mayor Zaragoza, members of the council, this is Manuel Herrera. And as we all just saw in the presentation, the presenter gave all the reasons of how this will negatively impact the residents of River Park. He went on and on and on and on again, why this is such a bad idea. And when Aaron Starr spoke, am I the only one who noticed that he did not dispute not one single thing as far as the negative impact that this will have on River Park? Not one single thing did he dispute. All he disputed was about some error in the math, you know. So once again, I say this to those few who will be voting on this. Be careful what you vote for. Read the fine print. If the guy who's initiating all this couldn't even dispute one negative impact on this, then, you know, what does that tell you? So have a good evening.
Thank you. So, Madam Clerk, is Ann Welsh available?
We have another speaker with a
Oh, we do? Okay, go
hand
ahead.
raised.
Go ahead.
Ms. Debbie Mitchell, please unmute. Please go ahead. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Thanks. I just have a question about number 10, the city-sponsored Community Facilities District No Tax Increase Public Safety Need, that one. If all of these measures are on the ballot and the residents vote no on all of them, does that keep their current CFDs in place? If they vote no on all but the city-sponsored one, does that eliminate anything else or reduce services anywhere else? If they vote yes, if they vote for the first one and the repeal of facilities number 5 and yes on the city-sponsored one, it seems that only covers certain services. I would just like a little clarification on the outcomes of the options.
Ken, can you respond to that?
Ms. Mitchell, you asked the most challenging questions of the night because the way that Mr. Starr has drafted these measures, they are, to put it kindly, not a picture of clarity. But let's start with what would happen if the city measure passed or got the most votes than the 3 star measures. In that situation, there would be no change. And as I mentioned earlier, there would actually be benefits to the residents because it would take away any concern that the funds might be used for purposes other than they're being used for right now. So it would be a real positive. And I could literally talk for hours on this, so I'll make this short. But as it comes to the 3 star measures, they have language saying that if all of them pass and get more than the city measure, it knocks out the city measure. But then they also say that if they all pass, they're not in conflict with each other, but you take the provisions that cut taxes the most. And just on their face, one cuts all the taxes, one cuts them in half, and one takes away services. So, and there's a lot of other language I could go on and on and on that if the star measures pass, there will need to be litigation to help sort out what provisions live, what provisions don't, and how they all interact together. So it is a cleverly drafted, but also poorly drafted because it's really hard to know exactly what they mean.
So, Debbie, okay with that? Thanks.
Mayor Zaragoza, we have another caller.
Okay, go ahead.
Caller with number ending in 1275, please unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Great. Hi, this is Aaron Starr. I'm using my wife's phone. My phone died. So I want to remind the council that your legal counsel has said many things to you, and I've said that they're wrong. I've been to court, and I've won. I have a pretty good batting average there. So I'm telling you that I think you're in violation of your sunshine ordinance. I think you just violated Measure M by not doing a pre-recorded presentation on this. So I think there are issues here. I think you can solve them by simply considering this item at the very next meeting. You can still get it on the ballot. Nothing stops you, but you avoid litigation that way. So I'd say take the easy way out, move to postpone this to the next meeting, and then you can vote for it, and then you won't have litigation over this issue. As far as the city's proposal, it's just a status quo measure for all intents and purposes. It doesn't provide any reform or relief to the residents because nothing will actually change for them. So I think this is meant to be diversion. I think it's meant to obfuscate and confuse voters. And I think that it's completely lacking in merit because people can accomplish the same thing by simply voting down the other measures. So this is only meant to confuse folks. This is, I think, I'll use the words of the city manager, deceitful. She seems to like to use in the newspaper. And I think that's where things stand. So I think you've got litigation risk. I'm going to encourage you to do the right thing, postpone to the next meeting, and then you can place it on the ballot, and there's no problem. Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, again, another speaker called Rob. Excuse me, Rowdy?
Yeah, Brody.
Rody.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, my name's Rob Brody. My wife and I bought our new home down over in River Park about a year ago in July. We bought it because it was beautiful. It is walkable, and it's safe, you know. So those three things are the main reason we moved there. So I'm against the initiatives that would reduce or eliminate the CFD funding, CFD 5 funding, just because, simply put, less money, and it's going to be less beautiful and less safe. Okay. Also, you know, the thing about listening to people saying, you know, they talk to different people there. Everybody I've talked to there just complains that there's not enough money being spent. Not enough money being spent on landscaping, on the fountain, on the police, the graffiti. We haven't caught the young kids that are, you know, committing, you know, graffiti there, you know. Everybody's complaining, and everything that they want done requires more money, and that money comes from our taxes. So, in short, I am for this city initiative. I think that's the right step forward, and I thank you for my time, for your time.
Thank you, Ram. Okay. Madam Clerk, any additional speakers?
Yes, Mayor. We're going to try Miss Ann Walsh again.
Okay.
Ms. Walsh, please unmute by pressing *6. Please go ahead. You have 3 minutes. Yes, we can.
Yeah, we can hear
Thank you. Go ahead.
For the confusion, thank you so much. I just wanted to focus on the police portion component of these initiatives, my concern. So just as residents who purchased homes in River Park, when the collection chose River Park as its home, we also knew we would be paying into River Park CFD 5 for the ongoing maintenance of landscape and parks, enhanced police services, among other things. The decision was made knowing the benefit was worth the cost. In other words, Having a CFD in perpetuity ensures that all of River Park would be maintained at an enhanced level and would provide enhanced police services to both residential and commercial areas. I know many of the, I'm just going to skip over that, the enhanced police services, meaning the dedicated officers, along with the police substation located at the collection, play a vital role in maintaining a safe and secure environment in our mixed-use community. Mixed-use communities can make it difficult to manage crime and other public safety issues. Officers who are dedicated to mixed-use communities can become familiar with the unique challenges facing the residents, workers, and visitors, and can develop specialized strategies to address these issues. Should the current services change, it would certainly have a negative impact to the collection and to the entire community, specifically to the police response time, which I am told would likely double or triple in time. The collection is doing all it can to provide a safe space within the community by having its own security team and by paying for additional police services as needed. Unfortunately, and despite the fact that since the tax year 2007-2008, we have paid nearly $6 million into CFD5, and unlike registered voters in River Park, we have no vote on these initiatives. We do, however, have a voice. We thank the city for adding the city-sponsored Community Facilities District 5, no tax increase, public safety, neighborhood services measure. We also urge voters in River Park to consider what might happen to their property values should any of the initiatives proposing change of any kind to CFD 5 pass, as changes will impact this community's level of service, not only with police, but also as it relates to the condition of the parks, medians, parkways, flood and storm protection services. As a final thought, the collection is a partner in this community, and we truly want what is best for all stakeholders in the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, any additional speakers, Madam Clerk?
We have one more virtual speaker.
Okay.
Caller with number ending in 8693, please unmute.
Hi, this is Alicia Purcell. I wanted to comment on the last speaker's comments that should these measures pass and the collection as a whole wishes to have special services, then they could actually form their own CFD that has only the collection within the boundaries and not be tethered to decisions that the residents of River Park wish to make. So I just want to put that option on the table that, they still have the ability to do that. And that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Okay, any other speakers, Madam Clerk?
Mayor, we do not have any additional speakers on this item.
Okay, then Councilman Turan.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I appreciate the information that Mr. Roselle had presented on this. I took a couple notes from speakers. First and foremost, and I can say this for the next item, but I'll just say briefly that Mr. Herrera did point out that now there has been 2 opportunities to speak on items pertaining to these initiatives, and neither of the proponents, 2 of the 3 proponents who are here tonight of this measure, who actually wrote it themselves, have refuted what was presented in the previous item through the impact for that report. I find it interesting also that Mr. Starr referred to this measure in front of us as status quo, that people can just not vote for his initiatives and that would keep everything status quo as well. I don't know if he missed it. I don't know if he didn't read the agenda item. I don't know if he didn't do any research or what the case may be, but it was pretty clear, at least from Mr. Roselle earlier, that this would be essentially reaffirming the voters saying, yes, we want to continue our CFD. The main differences being that things that are currently not being charged with a CFD will be excluded in perpetuity. I'm looking right at the one of his measures that he wrote. He and Ms. Purcell wrote, and Mr. Wilkenfeld had his name signed on it. On Section 2, Item C of the ordinance curbing the special tax for CFD 5, it reads in part, City Hall removed $1.6 million charge for fire protection starting fiscal year ending June 30, 2022. Then goes on to say, unfortunately, nothing legally prohibits the city from charging that again. So, this is not status quo. Mr. Rozelle just said that if the residents truly want to continue the CFD, but also want to formalize the exclusion of charges that have been removed or are not currently in there, this is their opportunity to do that. This is not status quo. And I find it interesting because that this might slip Mr. Starr's mind, because I feel that he and a few of his supporters, when I tried to make it more difficult for this or future councils to add fire protection or fire services back into the CFD, costs, they said, oh, well, they this is just dog and pony show. And I'm paraphrasing, of course, but they alluded to the fact that, oh no, they can still add it in if they truly wanted to. Well, this is the chance for us to never be able to add it in again. So not status quo. And again, I don't know if he missed that detail or chose to exclude it. I'm not sure. But that rang true of me. That rang some bells in my mind when he made that statement. So I appreciate the speakers. I hope the questions were answered for them. Mr. Herrera has said it a couple of times already, and I will say that I agree. Please read the initiatives in their entirety, the cities and the ones that are coming up in the next item. That's why this stood out to me, because I've read them multiple times. They read like stereo instructions, but you got to read them. They are in front of the voters. So anyways, those are my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. So any other comments on this item, or we need a motion on this item?
I move the recommended action.
Okay, first by Valenzuela, second by Basua. Roll call.
Councilmember Basua? Aye. Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Councilmember Perrello?
Yes.
Councilmember Tehran?
Yes.
Councilmember Valenzuela?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald?
Aye.
Mayor Zaragoza?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, item 11, City Attorney Department. This is subject calling for the elections for certified initiative measure titled 1, repeal the Community Facilities District Number 5, River Park, special taxes. 2, reduction of the maximum special tax that can be imposed within the Community Facility District Number 5, River Park. And 3, limitations of uses of special taxes for Community Facility District Number 5, River Park. And also the recommendation of the City Council, acting as the legislative body of the Community Facility District 5, River Park, City of Oxnard, call for the election to be certified for the certified initiative measure titled 1, repeal the Community Facility District Number 5, River Park, special taxes. 2, reduction of maximum special taxes that can be imposed within the Community Facility District 5, River Park. And 2, limitations on the use of special taxes for Community Facility Number 5, River Park. By adopting these 3 resolutions, which would order consolidation within the November 5th, 2024 statewide election, request the county clerk to conduct the election, and authorize the Board of Supervisors to canvass the returns. Legislative body, City Council, acting as the legislative body of Community Facility District Number 5, River Park. Ken?
Yes, very briefly. As you know, the City Council previously ordered the preparation of the 9212 report regarding the 3 ballot measures. And because you received this presentation, you now have 2 options regarding these 3 measures which were proposed by Aaron Starr, Alicia Purcell, and Danielle Wokenfeld. 1, you can adopt the 3 measures at tonight's meeting, or you could call the election for the ballot measures on the November 5th, 2024 statewide election. Staff, of course, does not recommend that the City Council adopt the 3 measures at tonight's meetings for a number of reasons. First, River Park residents should have the right to determine if they wish to keep, to modify, or to eliminate the services that are currently being provided by CFD number 5. By placing these 3 measures on the ballot, along with the one you just placed on there, River Parks would have a true choice to determine which path they want to go. Second, as I alluded to earlier, there are inconsistencies between the STAR initiatives, especially if all 3 were adopted this evening. By adopting the measures tonight, it would create a range of legal issues that the courts would need to resolve. 1, what the measures actually mean. 2, which provisions the measure should go into effect, and what the actual impacts on the River Park residents would be. The River Park residents should be given the opportunity to carefully consider the provisions of all 3 of the STAR measures, plus the measures that the city just placed on the ballot, determine if, as I already stated, if they want to keep, modify, or eliminate the services that are currently being provided by CFD 5. So staff does recommend, as indicated before, that the City Council, acting as a legislative body of the CFD number 5, call the election for all 3 ballot measures.
Thank you. Any speakers on this item?
Mayor Zaragoza, we do not have any speakers for this item.
Okay. Council members, what's the pleasure of this item? Councilmember Tehran.
Thank you, Mayor. I was hoping we'd have speakers on this, but I know we've had this item come up prior, and we've had speakers earlier tonight. Really, I was hoping the proponents would share a little bit more with the public, or in some way refute, as was mentioned, the report we just saw, comprehensive report on the impacts that these 3 initiatives could have on River Park and the rest of the city. If that's not going to happen, that's a prerogative. I can't make them speak. They can choose whether they want to speak in support or defense of their initiatives if they choose not to, and looks like they're choosing not to. I just wanted to take this last item here, this opportunity to, again, thank staff for the work that's been done on this in doing the 9212 report, but also in laying it out for the council to consider this evening. I agree with what the recommendation and what Mr. Rosell put out there. This was obtained using the proper ballot initiative process for a special district. In this case, it was 104 minimum signatures to get it on the ballot if those signatures were deemed valid. And so now we're gonna put it on the ballot. I see no reason not to. Mr. Starr followed the procedure, and as did the other 2 proponents, Ms. Purcell and Mr. Wilkenfeld, only one of which lives in River Park, according to the public records of the things they submitted. So I just wanted to, again, thank folks who have spoken. There are folks who sent us emails as well and written comments. And the ones I saw have not been favorable for these particular initiatives. But that's for the voters to decide. One last question, if we can, for staff. And in full transparency, the chat is not turned off tonight in the meeting, the Zoom webinar, and so there are messages being posted. Typically, I don't text or email during the meetings. No one has special access to the council, but I think an important point was brought up, and it would be viewed anyways on the public record. So I'll ask the question of just to bring it home, why would the River Park neighborhood, if the initiatives were passed, especially the full repeal, why would the River Park neighborhood not receive the same level of service as the rest of Oxnard? I'm asking that question exactly as it's written. I know that that's there's some corrections that can be made in there, but can we address that real quickly?
I can answer that, council member, very quickly. The neighbors would get the same service as the rest of the city, not the enhanced special services that they are enjoying in their CFD. And that's a crucial distinction for people. I mean, the irony here, and I know the proponents perhaps don't get the irony, but for years and years, everyone complains about how nice the new neighborhoods in North Oxnard are, assuming that we're spending all the general fund dollars in those neighborhoods and not in the rest of the city, which is also inaccurate. So the irony here is almost too much. It's almost like when you backtrack A Tale of Two Cities. But the bottom line would be, it'd be basically the same services which are spread throughout. But all of the things that make these neighborhoods nice and special and feeling extra safe would disappear. Thank you.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Much appreciated. I'll just close by sharing that, as I mentioned, they followed the process. I know in 2022, their legal interpretation or whatever it was, their interpretation of elections code was incorrect, as a judge had to tell them. So these didn't end up on the ballot in 22. And I think it was in 16 that the Measure M from 2016 was invalidated, found to violate state law. Measure Annis and Nancy from 2020 was invalidated by the appeals court and refused to be, or the Supreme Court declined to see it. So I say all that to say that there are certainly things that we can take Mr. Starr for on his word. But when it comes to his legal opinion on things, I don't know if he passed the bar, but I have to take that with a grain of salt as well, just given past performance. So with these items, I'm willing to move the recommended action that we call the election for certified initiative measures for these three and have them placed on the ballot. So
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Got a first by Teran, second by Perello. Please, roll call.
Councilmember Basua.
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal.
Aye.
Councilmember Perello.
Yes.
Councilmember Teran.
yes.
Councilmember Valenzuela.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
Aye.
Mayor Zaragoza.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
And with that, thank you to staff for really, really hard work, and thank you so much for this whole meeting today. And we are adjourned. Thank you.